Bonjour, my name is Denicia Pomaide and welcome to AM News. We'll start in the court, where an Accra High Court will on Saturday, January 4, deliver judgment on the NPP's application seeking to compel the Electoral Commission to recollate the results in some 4 disputed constituencies. Now, this follows the court's dismissal of an earlier legal objection raised by the NDC, paving way for the substantive case to be dealt with. Well, the NDC insists the results have already been declared in these constituencies, and regardless of the issues the NPP may have, an application for mandamus is not the right forum. Member of our Legal Affairs Desk, Kweku Asante, has more captured in this report.
The day started in court with a judge ruling on the NDC's preliminary legal objection that has been made in this case. You will recall that yesterday the NDC made a case that this was an election petition disguised as a mandamus application, and that once all the declarations have been made in all these 4 constituencies, the remedy for the NPP parliamentary candidates is to go by way of parliamentary election petition if they feel that the declaration made were null and void. And that was the case Edujiku Jotameklo made yesterday. The High Court judge disagreed today and ruled against the NDC when it comes to the preliminary legal objection. And so the mandamus application itself had to be gone into. We started from Tema Central, where Gary Nimako, the lawyer for the NPP parliamentary candidate, made the case that the collation was not concluded and that the entire process was marred with violence, and that they did write to the Electoral Commission demanding that the results be recollated and a declaration be made. They also talked about the fact that the NDC has not provided any evidence to back the fact that they actually won that election because they have not attached any summary result sheet to this. The Electoral Commission did not oppose this application for mandamus, except to say that they are ready to undertake their statutory obligation if the court orders them to do so. Edujiku Jotameklo, the lawyer for the NDC, opposed this application and said if the NPP's case is that the declaration were made in breach of any statute or CI 127, the applicable place to go is the High Court, but by way of an election petition and not come by way of mandamus. Again, he cited a letter written by the NPP parliamentary candidate to the Electoral Commission that actually admitted that issue officials in Tema Central had actually declared NDC's Ebi Bright as the parliamentary candidate-elect, but except to say that that declaration was made in breach of due process, for which reason he wanted the process restarted. And he said once the declaration had been made, the remedy lied in an election petition. There was also a tape played in court of the returning officer in the constituency declaring Ebi Bright, and the NDC's case is that once that evidence has been led in court to show that there was a declaration, if the claim of the NPP is that the declaration was made in breach of any regulation, then they have to go by way of an election petition and lead evidence to these effects. The court then called the case of Wokaikwe Central, where Gary Nimako made the point that the declaration of Baba Sadiq as MP-elect took into cognizance only 110 polling stations in that constituency, and that in fact there are more than 140 polling stations there, which clearly showed that the collation exercise had not been concluded. Edujiku Jotameklo then cited a letter written by Patrick Boama to the Electoral Commission where he demands a revocation of the declaration of Baba Sadiq as MP-elect because of what he called irregularities. Edujiku Jotameklo made the same case again, that if Patrick Boama incited a case of irregularities, then the appropriate forum is the High Court by way of an election petition. It was the same case with respect to Techiman South and Ablekuma North, where the NDC had been declared as the winners of that parliamentary election. The case was made that those declarations were made without due process and that the court should set same aside and order a collation of the results. The NDC again made the case that it's only an election petition where an evidence will be led to actually get to the root of the claims that have been made, that these declarations were made in excess of the powers conferred on the Electoral Commission. Irabnobin, who was earlier declared as the MP-elect for Ablekuma North, as well as Baba Sadiq, who was earlier declared as MP-elect for Wokaikwe Central, spoke to us after the hearing and said they were confident that they are going to win this case and take their rightful seats in Parliament.
Delay is not denial. I mean, we were all in the courtroom. It's been 6 hours of sitting. And no matter how the MPP decide to twist and turn issues, we are all privy to events. So I have no doubt that the will of the people will still stand.
Yes, I've always been confident that it will be affirmed. We're hopeful. Let's see how Saturday goes. We'll wait for the ruling on Saturday. But we're very confident that with the case that we put before the judge and the strength of the authorities we cited, I mean, this shows that this will be affirmed.
The NPP side did not avail themselves for interview, but we know now that on Saturday, the High Court will rule as to whether or not the mandamus application that have been made by the NPP has enough grounds for which reason it must be granted or say must be dismissed, and the earlier declaration made by the Electoral Commission should stand, and if any party is agreed, then it should go by way of an election petition. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, High Court Complex, Accra.
Now, fire has gutted a section of the Kantamanto market here in Accra. Checks reveal more than 100 stores have been affected. Kantamanto, famed as Africa's largest used clothing market, has suffered numerous fires in the past. However, firefighters believe the scale of this latest blaze could halt business activities for an extended period, affecting the livelihoods of thousands. Let's go on Zoom and speak to ADO1 Alex Kenate. He's member of the PR department of the Ghana National Fire Service. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Do we know exactly what caused this fire?
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so I was asking exactly what caused the fire this dawn.
Well, firefighting is still in progress, and as firefighting is in progress, the investigation is still underway. So I can't give the exact cause of fire as of now, but information we are picking up from people or the traders around indicate that it could be arson. So for now, we can't confirm or deny if it is arson, but it is something that we are considering in our investigation. So as you can see behind me, the fire is still well alight. The fortunate thing for us is that we've been able to confine or contain the fire from further spread. I'm currently on the compound of the Ghana Commercial Bank. We've been able to.
Oh dear, I think we may have lost Alex Kenate, but he was just explaining that, speaking to the... Okay, so we have Alex Kenate back.
So yes, so we've been able to contain the fire from further spread. But unfortunately, the fire is not under control just at the moment. It's just confined.
Okay, thank you so much. But are you able to tell us, so from your explanation, you're saying that the flame hasn't completely been doused. How long do you think it would take to douse the fire?
Well, I wouldn't want, as you can see, we are still, our turntable logger is still fighting the fire behind me. So for now, I don't want to jump the gun to give a specific time where the fire will be extinguished. But we are working hard and hoping that by close of day, or maybe before the close of day, we should be able to completely douse the fire and record no casualty, either civilian or firefighter casualty.
Okay, but were there any significant hindrances to accessing the place to douse the fire?
Oh yes, a lot. So accessibility was a big problem. Our fire tenders struggled to find access. Even as at 1:30, 2 a.m., we were struggling to find access to the place. Being able to navigate or meander our way through these stores or these shops was a big problem. Also, the fact that interferences from people around posed a very huge challenge for us because the people were interfering in the performance of our duties. So it took us quite a while to be able to get our brothers, the police, to get a station that controls for us to be able to work. So accessibility has been a problem. Hydrants, the lack of hydrants in the area is also a problem for us because as we speak right now, there's no working fire hydrant within this area. The closest area that we go and replenish for water is Parisco and at the GRA head office. And this is a very big problem because looking at the early morning traffic that started being able to drive all the way from here to Chinyere to Farisko and coming back, it poses a huge challenge for us. But we are working hard. But again, I would like to ship this in that this is a clarion call for better resourcing of the Ghana National Fire Service, because as I speak to you right now, 13 fire tenders have been dispatched or are here at the scene. Almost all the fire tenders in Accra, including Parliament, including Jubilee House, are all here fighting this fire. We've called the fire tender from our regional headquarters at Tema, and then our station at Spintex. They are all here. So if there's any fire in Accra, will be found in a tight corner. As I speak, there's a fire at Adenta, and we have to dispatch our team from Kantamanto all the way from Kantamanto to go to Adenta to fight the fire. That's how a cry for help our situation is. So this should be a clarion call to government and to key stakeholders, individuals and organizations to help resource the fire service so that we'll be able to serve them much better.
Okay, so before you go, how long did it take for the fire service to respond to the distress call? So
the unfortunate thing, as I don't know if I mentioned that we didn't really receive a distress call. We have what we call station outlook. Okay. So our officers at Makola saw thick smoke in the air. And so upon proceeding to the scene, then they saw a motor rider who came in saying there was fire there. Nobody had actually picked up a phone to call the fire service. It was until we got here before people started calling our control room. So our team moved from their station at Makola by 1:18 a.m. and by 1:20 a.m. they arrived here at the scene. And then realizing the extent of damage, had to call for reinforcements from all other fire tenders. So yes, it took us just 2 minutes based after we noticed the fire.
Okay, thank you so much. And that's ADO1 Alex Kinate. He's member of the PR department of the Ghana National Fire Service. Now, moving on, the Catholic Church is set to build one of Ghana's largest health facilities dedicated to the care of the aged. Now, under a 5-year development plan, this facility, championed by the Behold Thy Mother Foundation, will address the healthcare needs of the elderly individuals, many of whom face significant challenges accessing medical support. The foundation has acquired 100-acre land for the project, with construction slated to begin this year. Abdullah Osman has more in this report.
The specialized hospital that would be dedicated to addressing the healthcare needs of the aged in Ghana is spearheaded by the Behold Thy Mother Foundation of the Catholic Church. The initiative seeks to bridge the gap in healthcare services for elderly citizens, many of whom face unique challenges, including access to affordable medical care. While the hospital is under construction, the foundation, led by Reverend Father David Obin-Paintil, plans to extend interim support by providing financial assistance to the aged, helping to ease the burden of their medical expenses. Benjamin Oshebre is the director of the foundation.
So if we are not going to be the first, then maybe we'll be among the first who will be establishing this facility. Through the effort of Reverend Father David Obin-Paintil, we have procured 100-acre land. That is for the project. So this 2025, we are going to embark on that infrastructural activity. We have a 5-year developmental project. So every year, then we move from one phase to another. So 2025, we are going to start the project. Now, before we even finish the establishment or the facility, we are also going to support the aged mothers in their healthcare needs, because most of them have to go to hospital, if not every month, every 2 months. So we are going to support them financially. We are going to assist them so that they can go to the hospital frequently.
Senior Technical Advisor at the National Development Planning Commission, Dr. Eric Akoben, hailed the initiative and called for support for it.
What they want to achieve is that by the year 2030, they want the organization to be a dominant organization in providing the needs of the aged in this country. They are looking at constructing, they have got the land and they are going to construct a health facility for the aged. You see, if you look at our syllabus for nursing training, the syllabus and the examination, they are more of maternal care. and also providing, helping in disease areas like malaria and other diseases. But the elderly care, we don't have those things in our syllabus. So it's something that we have to also do, we have to work on.
Jasahini of Mankesim Nana Kujubotrin called on children to pay attention to their parents after they've struggled to raise them up.
When you don't take care of your mother or your parents, I mean, you will see yourself that life will not go on well for you. So I'm urging every child, every adults, that if your mother has taken good care of you, you should also try your best to take care of your mother.
This year's party for the aged event assembled about 400 people from communities around Cape Coast. Abdallah Osman's report read to you.
Let's do some business stories next. Now, economist Agyeman-Badu has indicated that the city's sustained stability will depend largely on the economic policies of the incoming administration. The local currency has been fairly stable from November last year, but there are fears that its real test will be next month. Agyeman-Badu maintains that John Mahama's government must send some signals to the market to deal with the confidence issues.
It depends on how the new government handles things between now and then. What has helped reserve accumulation has been, in large part, gold for reserve policy. Yes, the current government, then opposition, have had questions about it, albeit about the transparency of the process. I mean, if they want to continue with the program with better transparency, it helps the market. But if they would jettison a gold for reserve program, then the question becomes, how do you accumulate reserves at such a fast pace? I mean, all of those decisions will shape sentiment as to where the market will see things going forward. And so, yes, the Q1 by March is a test case as to whether we may continue on the path of stability. Or and of course, by that period also, you would have seen the budget of the new government, whether we are keeping on track fiscal consolidation or we are just setting it, whether the renegotiated IMF program, if we would achieve even something by that time, will be something that resonates with the market or not. All of those picture becomes much clearer, and that will inform sentiment around the city.
Chanzo Capital is leveraging collective expertise to build viable businesses and ensure scalability. Now, in 2021, African tech startups alone attracted funding support of over $1.6 billion. Managing partner at Chanzo Capital, Eric Osiakwa, says he hopes to leverage partnerships through its Angel Fair Africa event to develop the sector.
What we do is we try to take an ecosystem approach where we say, okay, it's not just enough to give you capital, but you need other resources that come with the capital for you to succeed. And so when we invest in you at an early stage, we want to play some mentoring role. We want to be an advisor because we can help you beyond the capital that we give you, right? Now, you also need other support. You need somebody who knows legal to give you legal advice. If you don't know accounting, you need somebody who has accounting knowledge. And so at Chanzo Capital, we started this event called Angel Fair Africa. And the idea was to bring all these ecosystem players as well as investors and entrepreneurs together, right? And this event is kind of our deal-making event. So every year we work with incubators, accelerators, innovation hubs, who give us the founders and innovators that are within their ecosystem.
And that's it for AM News, but you know that the news review will come shortly after this. We'll be joined by political scientist and head of European studies at the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Asah-Sante. My name is Denise Yapamaide. Have a lovely day.
But let's get on to myjoyonline.com this morning, Doc, and do some news review. I want to combine two stories from President-elect John Dramani Mahama. First, he says the NDC majority cannot do the work of nation building alone, And then he says, pray and fast for the difficult task ahead of us. And that was yesterday. But I want to get a bit of the story out there in terms of what he's saying, that the NDC majority cannot do the work of nation building alone. President-elect John Dramani Mahama stated that although the National Democratic Congress holds a clear majority in the forthcoming parliament, it cannot govern alone. Quote, even though we have a large majority, people say you can use it to do this, you can use it to do that. No, that is not what it is about, he said. And he emphasized that governance is about working together to build the nation. It quotes, it is about working together to build the nation we want. And then yesterday, I think in his New Year address, he mentioned that we should pray and fast for the work ahead. Doc, what's your reflection on these two stories I've combined?
Pray and fast, yes, I believe that. But beyond prayer and fasting, we want people to get to work and work and work and work. We've gone past prayer, we've gone past all those things. We need to work. We need to work, and we need to, our leaders must show the way by coming out with, innovative means by which we can do things. The old order should change so that we now take our destinies into our own hands, build capacity, and then, throw out ideas that will build our society. We need to be able to work so that we create employment for our people. We create means of livelihoods for our people, and then we support our state to support us eventually. So it's a tall order, but it is always the case that we can begin with a step of that million-mile journey and then do the needful for ourselves. We can't govern alone, even though we have a clear majority. That is, I support that call, because governance is a dialogue between stakeholders. So obviously in Parliament, you need to have all the stakeholders together to take a decision. The clear majority doesn't mean much. What it tells you is that Ghanaians, looking back from the time MPP came to office 2020, they gave them a certain mandate, close to what absolute majority. But Ghanaians found out that the work that they did was not satisfactory. So they reduced that power and created a hung parliament for us. And you saw the complaint that the government didn't have enough power to do ABC. Ghanaians look back and then review the process. And now they've sent to Parliament to test majority for NDC. They are telling you now, yes, now you have enough powers. Change the fortunes of Ghanaians and all that. So this should send a clear signal to the NDC that Ghanaians are not looking for anything like excuses. No. But they want that you have full powers, work, and deliver us from the shackles of corruption, the tentacles of what? Bad governance and all that, and create a society we can call what? A just society for ourselves, where we can fend for ourselves, we can have one means of livelihood. So it's a tall order, and Ghanaians are, and I'm sure they've taken a cue from what happened to NDC, that in 4 years' time, when we're doing assessment, if they are not able to deliver based on their promise, I am afraid we're going to throw them out. But if they are able to maintain the status quo and improve our lot, we can renew their mandate for them. So the signals are already on the wall. They need to take it seriously.
And Doc, while we are, inching closer to the inauguration day, looks like slowly, but we are concluding on all the contentious constituencies, or should I say the aftermath of election 2024. Yesterday, an Accra High Court concluded the hearings on those cases involving 4 parliamentary constituencies: Tema Central, Okaikwe Central, Techiman South, and Ablekuma North. But judgment of the matter has been scheduled for Saturday, January 4th at 12 p.m. Doc, I know you've been following the story and how the arguments from both sides, the EC, NDC, whether or not a mandamus was the right one. Now that we are waiting for the final verdict on Saturday, what do you make of it?
Oh, I'm not looking forward to anything extraordinary. Yes, I always have my hope in the courts because they are the pivots around which democracy revolves. So I always look forward to, a verdict that will stand the test of time, and I know the court will deliver that.
Okay.
I don't have what we have to do as a society is that it is true that the election went on well, but there were rough edges. We need to work on that issue of collation and recollation. There's a problem there. We as a society, and particularly so the Electoral Commission, must sit down and figure out how they can make collation very easy and then on time, so that all the rough edges that we find with the last election will be able to address them. We have a tendency where there are problems going to election, we see them, we'll talk about them. As soon as we are done with election, we forget about them, only for the problems to reoccur in the next election. This time around, let's nip the problem in the bud.
Thank you so much, Doc. Let's do some health stories now, and this is also coming from myjoyonline.com. It says the death toll from the cholera outbreak in parts of Ghana has shot up to 37, with the number of confirmed cases also increasing from 346 to 359 as of 26th December 2024. And the 2 new deaths were recorded in the Western region, and this has prompted the Ghana Health Service to undertake mortality audits. And out of the total number of deaths recorded, 5 were brought in dead, and as 91 out of 276 districts share between them 4,618 cumulative suspected cases. And this is serious for us. You need to protect yourselves out there. Doc, let me quickly add one more story before I come to you, and this is from citynewsroom.com. CTAG declares indefinite strike effective today, January 2nd. The Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana has announced its decision to embark on an indefinite strike effective Thursday, January 2nd, which is today. And the declaration follows an emergency National Council meeting of the Colleges of Education Teachers Association held yesterday, Monday. And in a statement, Monday, that was not yesterday. In a statement issued on December 31st, CTAG explained that this decision follows earlier notices of strike served on 23rd September 2024 and 23rd December 2024, of which the National Labour Commission failed to address their concerns. It's a new year. We're already beginning with strike industry action. Doc?
Yeah, it is unfortunate that we continue to have strikes and all that. And it's an indicator of the fact that there's something wrong with our governance. Because anytime you see strike, it's a public opinion, issue that is coming up for our consideration. And so we expect the experts to be able to look at this and address them. I will urge the new government to put their house in a certain order, place appropriate people who can look at these things and deal with them. One of the things that affected the MPP government is the issue of what public opinion concerns, and they were not able to address them. In political science, when you see issues of public opinion concerns manifesting, it means that there is something wrong with the governance, and you need to check that. When you see strikes upon strikes, when you see demonstrations, when you see intellectuals coming out to speak about the ills of society and all that, then there is a problem. You need to fix that. And above all, when you see people going to court, which is a good thing, but when you see them, in droves going there to look at certain issues and all that, you need to check these things. So I would urge the new government to have a political officer who will be able to look at these things and provide appropriate political solutions. The legal solutions are good, but it's not every issue that you confront it with legal solution. They should be mindful of that. And then cholera outbreak, very problematic, but it boils down to one thing. The doctors will tell you when you talk about cholera, more often than not, we are talking about cleanliness, and they say it's next to godliness. If you don't maintain clean environment and all that, you are caught in this type of well. So we need to up our game in this. The government, this outgoing government promises by making the city of Accra the cleanest in Ghana. I don't know whether that story is anything to go by. We want the new government to chart a new path and ensure that our environment is clean at all times, so that we save ourselves the little resource we have, use it to what improve the lot of people than spend them on what health issues that we can avoid them. I'm not saying that health issues are not important, they are, but there are some we can avoid them and save ourselves the cost.
All right, Doc. Let me do some other stories on City Newsroom, and if any of them piques your interest, we can discuss. We already spoke about the fire ravage that's ravaged Kantamanto markets. Kwam's Petroleum CEO Millicent Bruce and Stud Sompahene of Gomwa Isabakrum. Tema ECG loses cables to fire. Dr. Siang Ejapong brings New Year cheer with generous donations to over 4,000 people. School feeding caterers confirm payment of arrears. I do want to get a bit into this because we know that they sort of picketed at the Ministry of Gender and Children and Social Protection 2 days ago. National President of the School Feeding Caterers Association, Nana Amoti Sechi, has confirmed that caterers under the Ghana School Feeding Program have begun receiving their outstanding third-term salaries. That's great news. This development comes after the Ministry for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Dakwa Newman, made a promise to settle these payments. And in an interview with City News, they mentioned that they've accessed their funds and others are yet to do so due to bank holidays and limited access to banking services in rural areas. Quote, by the grace of God, they honored their promise. They paid as on 31st December around 6 p.m. Some of the caterers have been able to access the funds on January 1st, but some are still waiting because of bank holidays and their e-Swish machines do not work on such days. So I'm just glad that we have actually paid, because there was also a news story about postponing reopening of schools because of the late debts and some of these issues that were yet to be resolved. But Doc, over to you.
I think it's refreshing news, but issue end. We have heard this tale for a very long time. When people render service, they must be paid for the services rendered. That's all. Because these things, there are budgets that are associated with them. So what happens to the budget? Why are we struggling to pay? It means that, look, there are certain basics that are not all right. Let's get the basics right, and then we can feed our schools and feed them well. The issue of what? Poor quality of food and all those things. We need not to tell leaders of or managers of these programs. No, it is something that they should know that they should do it at all times and maintain quality food for the schools, ensure prompt payment, and make sure that the sector is working. 24-hour economy should be able to support this exercise to bring hope and relief to headmasters and head teachers and then families. This tale, we should end it now. I look at Tema ECG and then the fire incident there. That is another unfortunate story. So tied to the first one I touched on earlier, I believe that we should have a holistic approach to dealing with these problems, because, as I've already said, it's becoming one too many, and as if the state has no solution. But I know there is always a way out, except that we are not making use of appropriate stakeholders to help us to deal with this problem. This new government should be able to find a lasting solution to this problem.
There's an interesting story that caught my attention this morning, and I'm just, I want to get to it. It's on Ghana Web. It says there's a beer shortage hit Ashanti region. Consumers left frustrated. A widespread shortage of beer has been reported in the Ashanti region due to the Christmas festivities celebration. Now, according to 3news.com, drink operators have reported a shortage of mini club beer in parts of the Ashanti region over the past 2 months. An unusual increase in demand for the beverage by residents caused frustration among beer and pub operators who struggled to meet the high demand from their customers. I mean, we just came from celebrating a win. That will be from, NDC party supporters. And then we went straight into Christmas. So it makes sense that people, there's a higher demand for beer, but a shortage. I don't know what you make of it, Doc. Do you drink beer?
It's an interesting. No, I don't take alcohol.
Okay.
It's an interesting story. Human interest story, so to speak. And people business are booming, and then people are also having some respite and then enjoying themselves. But I know that those in charge of production of this will do the needful and make sure that the market is sustained, but also the caution that they should drink responsibly and make sure that the holidays are over. We should get back to work.
Right. Okay. So let's go to dailyguide.network.com now. It says Ghana Airports Company Limited shuts down 4 companies at Kotoka International Airport over debt. The first we heard of was Magdan Aviation. Let me get into that story actually, so that we see what the details are. And it says Ghana Airports Company Limited shuts down 4 companies over debts. And this story is yesterday. In a bid to recover outstanding debts, the Ghana Airports Company Limited has embarked on a regular debt collection exercise targeting companies operating at Kotoka International Airport. And it takes place every month. It aims to retrieve monies owed GACL and round up debt collection of the year. Now, according to a press statement released by GACL, Ghana Airports Company Limited, several companies have failed to honor their obligations, prompting the company to take drastic measures. One such company is Magdan. We know about that. And although there was some reported discrepancies in the figures that Ghana Airports was putting out and what Magdan Aviation was also putting out. And they're saying that in a recent development, Magdan has paid 2 million Ghana cedis as of December 25th, leaving a balance of 1.995 million Ghana cedis. Now, a previous payment plan also presented, okay, I think it's just the same story about Magdan. I was hoping to get the other companies that were shut down because of debt, but that's not here yet. Doc, hold on for me. Let me do some other stories, and then I'll come to you. Police declare war against fake prophecies on 31st night. You can see a picture of Dan Parry there. Distilled Esiom Krontiheni attacks Akufo-Addo, praises Mahama. And Ghana's economy is recovering, according to President Akufo-Addo. In a significant boost to Ghana's economic prospects, President Adedanko Akufo-Addo has announced that the country's economy is witnessing a remarkable recovery. And now the other side is that the IMF is actually warning us that our growth, whatever we are calling growth, is fragile, and yet we are celebrating and hailing it. The outgoing administration is saying that they're handing over a strong economy, which, shoots high the expectations of Ghanaians of the incoming administration. But, Doc, this is what we have.
I'm not an economist, but we have a basic understanding if economy is healthy. When you go to market, you are able to afford goods and services. When you engage in a business that requires that you visit the forex, what is the situation, and a host of others. These are the indicators of the ordinary man. If they work well, it will reflect in our lives. So we give ourselves time and see whether what the president is saying is anything to go by. But without struggling to look for an answer, I think it's to the contrary. We are yet to experience that. Let's look at the issue of war against prophecies. A good call. We have heard it time and again, and we will commend the IGP some past exercises that he and his team undertook to deal with this problem. Prophecies are they are becoming too many in our system, and there's nothing wrong with that anyway. But the way sometimes prophecy about what threat of death and all that, you create fear and panic, and for me that's where the problem is. And it also has its own negative effect, where people resign themselves to faith and then believe that it's over, and that they don't need to put in their all to deal with problems and all that. The reality of the situation is that, yes, we should be religiously strong, but behind that, we should be pragmatists and know that this issue, this is the way to go and all that. Yes, so if the IGP is able to stem the tide, fine, because sometimes it becomes too much. Look at the elections. Look at so many prophecies, and all making the point that it's God who spoke to them. And we saw the results. You saw those who didn't get them right. Which type of God spoke to them? Surprised. And then some of them threatening that if this doesn't happen, I will do this. Some who said they will leave this country. They will. These are things that let us remember that religion is private matter. So if you have any religious belief and concerns, address it in private and deliver us in public, so that we can have a meaningful society and then we'll move on.
Okay.
Is there anything? Yeah, Ghana Airport Company and the debt issue. If you owe, you need to pay. It's a very simple matter. If you fail to pay, those you owe them will take an action. And that's exactly what we are seeing with Ghana Airport Company. Nothing wrong about that, provided they follow the dictates of the law. So I don't have a problem with that.
Doc, you remember that incident, should I call it funny or peculiar incident, where the vice president was trying to commission an e-gate at the airport and it failed?
Yeah.
Looks like travelers are expressing gratitude for streamlined immigration. I want to get into that story because it's related to that e-gate. So Ghanaian travelers have expressed their satisfaction with the newly installed e-gates at Terminal 3 of Kotoka International Airport in Accra. These advanced systems mark a significant milestone in Ghana's digitization agenda. And they say the introduction of the e-gates, which are accessible through the Ghana card, has garnered praise for its efficiency in streamlining the immigration process. One traveler said, quote, "The government has done well. Although people have criticized Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's digitization agenda, the e-gates are really helpful. They speed up processes at KIA, and now we don't have to pay money here again, and there are no queues." So, all in all, we've seen the positive side of this e-gate that was commissioned.
For me, from the word go, I saw it as a very positive program.
Right.
And if you stretch the conversation, issue about digitization is a fine thing. It's unfortunate that that day the vice president had that problem. But for me, it was a non-issue. Yes, you can have technical challenges and all that, but the project is what I was looking at. And for me, it was a good one. And it's going to stand the test of time. We have started seeing the benefit of it and all that. It's my hope and prayer that we continue to do these things and take the conversation to another level that will improve our lot. Sometimes we glorify ourselves with a few things we have achieved. We have done this and that. Let's stop the talk a little bit and do more. As children of Oliver, we require more.
Let me take you to Nigeria now. Tinubu vows to turn Nigeria around. Tinubu vows to take Nigeria to the promised land. And that story is also coming from enjoyonline.com, that despite the lamentations of economic hardship occasioned by reforms introduced by his administration, President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday assured the citizenry that he will take Nigeria to the promised land. And the president said that he has the confidence, competence, determination, and capability to ensure that he build a nation that the people would be proud of. And this is, as he said, that his administration is encouraged by the National Assembly support over the last 19 months and is determined to take Nigeria to the promised land. The few Nigerians I know don't express satisfaction with the work, development and things going on under Tinubu's administration. But it's just reassuring, I guess, that the president is still saying that they're going to do the work that it takes to turn Nigeria into a promised land. Doc?
Nigeria is a big power in terms of military might, economic might, and the rest of them. And so we expect Nigeria to have a very sound economy to operate from. More often than not, if you look at resources they have, compared to the kind of improvement that the people have, you realize that there's something wrong with that. It is my hope and prayer that this government will be able to do the needful and build the capacity of Nigerians and support the effort to take the level of development to another. That is all Nigerians need. And I support that call that the president must do more. And then he must live by the promise he has given to them. And then build a better society for Nigeria. Let us remember that when Nigeria is in crisis, all of us in West Africa, we have a feel of that. So we always want to make sure that the regions and the countries within are safe so that we all can also breathe a sigh of relief.
Doc, as we wrap up, I do want to know what your expectations are of the incoming administration. I mean, the new year has begun, and I know the transition team is working to ensure everything is going on smoothly. But what are your expectations of the incoming administration? It could be in any sector, really.
It's a big one. I expect the government to do nothing but, stop the celebration and then begin to work. I am happy that people like Sidun Ketia and the president himself and all that, they've cautioned people that enough of the celebration, let's get busy. They should get busy from the word go and make sure that what they promise us within 120 days, at least they will fulfill a number of them. Because that gives people confidence that what you promise, you are busy doing it. If you see anything to the contrary, then people begin to lose hope. But I have no doubt in my mind that given Muhammad's experience from MP to minister to vice president to president, he has seen it all. And this is his last national service. I want him to leave a legacy that will serve the stand the test of time. I wish the government well, but we as a society will give them the best to succeed. But when they fail to do that, we will not be held back in criticizing them. We will come and then expose the weaknesses of the government, because criticisms are important functions in any democratic enterprise. They must embrace themselves for such venture and allow themselves to be criticized and get ideas to build a society. That is the way to go. In other words, they should have big stomach to be able to stomach all these problems and have solutions. They should do more of the workshop than the talk shop.
Doc, do you think Ghanaians should manage their expectations of the incoming administration? I mean, looking at where we're coming from out of this administration, the economic hardship, inflation, and all the things that, have plagued us. And then our expectations of Mahama, it's almost as if everyone thinks he's coming in to just save us and do, wave a magic wand and turn everything around. Should we be managing our expectations?
We should do that, but you see, you can't blame Ghanaians for expecting much from a government that has a party that has promised them a lot. We will expect that, but we know that it's not possible for government to honor that, all of that within the short time. What we are asking for that, whilst we are looking for a bigger thing to be done for us, the few things that you can do to bring relief to us, they should be able to do this. And then they should be serious about the things that cause leakages within the system. Those are the things that affect our very survival. If they are able to get those bases right, they are home and dry.
And that there is Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante is a political scientist and the head of European Studies at the University of Ghana. And before we go, today is Peter Senu's daughter's 6th birthday. Peter Senu is a OT regional correspondent. Today is Enam Zineto Senu's birthday. She turned 6. He says, let's celebrate her. He prays that God bless and protect her. Happy birthday, my dear Enam Zineto Senu. Your father celebrates you. And from all of us here at the Multimedia Group, we wish you a happy 6th birthday. Folks, that's the end of the news review segment on the AM show. You want to stay because sports comes up next. And after that, we get into our big stories. We'll be right back.
It was in the right direction that the objection was dismissed. And in terms of the substantive arguments, I think arguments were preferred for both sides of the divide.
I mean, the conversation this morning is really to seek clarity on the matter, you know, and understand what a mandamus is, so everything that is going on. Now, the National Democratic Congress raised preliminary objections, right? And they were challenging the High Court's jurisdiction over these matters. So on what legal basis can such jurisdictional challenges be made? And what are the typical considerations for the court in such a situation?
The argument was that basically once an election has been concluded, and this was the argument that was preferred by the NDC candidates in this particular matter, that once an election was concluded and there has been some declaration of some sort, regardless of the circumstances leading to that particular declaration, the only recourse for anyone who is affected by that, for want of a better phrase, purported declaration will be you seek redress by recourse to PNDC Law 284, which is the representation of the people's law, where you can challenge the validity of an election, a parliamentary election, by way of an election petition. So basically that was their argument, that to the extent that there had been some announcement, I would choose to call it, because we need to get this right. That
I like your choice of word. You said announcement and not a declaration.
Yes, because the declaration is a legal phrase, and you just don't arrive at a declaration. If you look at the Public Election Regulation CI 127, there are a number of processes that you have to go through before you get to that point where a declaration is made, and then the subsequent gazetting and all those kinds of things.
Right.
First and foremost, if you look at Regulation 43 of CI 127, you would note that at the end of the parliamentary elections in all constituencies, the polling station results for all polling stations, or the election results for all polling stations in that particular constituency, have to be assembled and given to the returning officer of that particular constituency. And then that is when the collation process is done. So all the polling station results are then tabulated or are then collated. And collation is simply addition. It is not rocket science. It is not something that is so extraordinary that has led us to all this. It's a question of adding the individual polling station results for all the polling stations in a particular constituency. So if the constituency has 200 polling stations, what it means is that you'd have to record all the 200 polling station results onto the Form 1C, that is the Parliamentary Election Results Collation Form. So once you put all the results, all the 200 results from the 200 polling stations on the Parliamentary Election Results Collation Form, the Form 1C, then you add it and arrive at the conclusion in terms of the candidates and what results that they got in terms of the number of votes they got and that. Then that is then transmitted onto the Parliamentary Election Results Summary Sheet, that's Form 1D. And it is on the basis of that. So it starts from the collation form, where you have all the polling stations listed with the polling station codes and the results attained by all the candidates in all the polling stations. Then once you get the number that each candidate gets, then that number is then transferred onto the Form 1D, that's the Parliamentary Election Results Summary Sheet. And it's on that basis then that a declaration properly so-called can be made. So holding someone's hand and announcing that this person has gotten X number of votes in the constituency without going through that process, without there being any evidence of the collation being done or completed, does not amount to a declaration in law. That's my respectful opinion. And so that's the crux of the matter. So as your reporter was saying that the NDC's argument was that to the extent that some declarations had been made, the recourse is to go by election petition. Unfortunately, that is not the understanding of the law, in my opinion, because of the processes that you have to go through by way of CI 127. And when the argument is made that this is an election petition disguised as a mandamus, application. If you look at the PNDC Law 284, which gives the basis for mounting an election petition, it talks about cancelling an election result and grounds for cancelling an election results and all that. The issue is not a question about cancelling election results. And this is where I think the media, including your station, sometimes get it wrong with the whole idea of recollation. There's no issue of recollation. Collation was truncated in these constituencies because of the scenes which you reported it, all other media stations reported. Saw what happened in the collation center. So collation was truncated, and the police advised the Electoral Commission, because of the security situation, because some unknown thugs and unknown persons had more or less invaded these collation centers, and there were all manner of things happening. The Electoral Commission was advised to halt the process because of the lack of the security situation being unstable and all that. And so subsequently, it was scheduled to be done again. The collation was to be continued, not a recollation.
Doc, just for clarity, so is that the appropriate strategy to deal with that? I mean, in the areas where collation, like you're explaining, was incomplete because you say it was truncated. What are the proper legal obligations of the EC in that regard? What should have been done?
Under those circumstances where it's a question of life and it's a question of destruction of property, and we've seen incidents where pink sheets were destroyed, people went there destroying material, even the Tama Police Regional Command, there were some skirmishes that happened there and all that. Under those circumstances, I mean, how do you go ahead when the various parties involved or some parties involved are trying to or don't want the process to go the way it's supposed to go by law? Remember, it's a legal process that is supposed to be completed. So if you're not able to do that and your security is not assured, it makes no sense to be there to purport to do anything, because there's nothing that can be done at that particular point in time where people are all around threatening or demanding that particular candidates be declared, whether or not the process is complete, and all those kinds of things. So it was the right call. And remember, it was the Ghana Police that advised, because the Ghana Police Service was primarily responsible for the security of the elections. And they advised the Electoral Commission to halt the process, to continue it subsequently at the Ghana Police Depot at Tesano. But even that, we saw that there was the same situation that happened there again. People invaded the place when they disrupted the process and all that. So it was halted again. So it was because of that truncation of the collation process, not recollation, because collation was not done in accordance with the set out rules in CI 127 in all these constituencies. That led to the MPP candidates demanding the EC to do its job by way of the demand letters, which is a prerequisite for the mandamus application.
And now both parties have presented various forms of evidence, letters, video recordings, and all that. Doc, if you were to make an educated guess, which way do you think the court will be leaning?
That's something, I can't preempt, or I can't do this, but you're asking me anyway. So,
I just want to know what do you think that the possible outcomes of this petition would be?
From the publicly available material, from the videos that we've seen of these, what I choose to refer to as announcements, and from all we know, the fact that there weren't any parliamentary election results collation formed. In some of the constituencies, for instance, like in Okaikwe Central, there was the returning officer in purporting to announce, or what some choose to call a declaration, I say is an announcement, clearly indicates, and this video is publicly available, so everyone can access that, said that the results that he was announcing was out of 110, was from 110 polling stations, out 140 polling stations in Okaikwe Central, and the additional one special voting center making 141, representing 78% of the total votes or election in the constituency. And I ask this question. In an election, parliamentary elections, unlike presidential elections, is first past the post. And first past the post simply means that you can win the election even with one vote. There's no requirement of winning by more than 50% and all those kinds of things, which we see at the national level. So if the returning officer is announcing that the results that he's announcing is from, or is based on 110 polling stations out of 140 polling stations in the constituency, representing 78% of the total votes or the election results in the constituency, I'll leave you to make your own deduction from that, whether that can be a declaration properly so called, especially when there was no parliamentary election results collation form, which I explained earlier on that the law requires that the results from all the polling stations in the constituency must be recorded on that Form 1C, and then that should be then transcribed or you take that and put it on the Form 1D, and on that basis, a legal declaration can be made as opposed to an announcement of purported results in a constituency.
Right. Interesting thoughts there. When you look at the machinations we use or we adopt in terms of election disputes resolution, I mean, to the extent that the Constitution allows, and how it has evolved over the years, would you say there are some gaps that we should be looking at filling so far to make the processes easier? What are those gaps?
Definitely. This election has taught us something. And if the arguments that some of the parties are making is anything to go by, what it will mean is that in future elections, if nothing is done, if we don't go through some reform process where we try to close some of these gaps, what it will mean is that immediately the election is over, all you have to do is find an EC official. It doesn't even matter who that EC official is, because in one of the situations, like in Kantamanto, apparently it wasn't the returning officer from the constituency that announced those results. It was a different person from a different constituency. All you would need to do is find some EC official, and then maybe by way of threats or whatever it is that you can do, force that person, quote unquote, to announce results not based on all the polling stations in the. You don't even have to wait for the election results. All you have to do is hold the person's hand and say, I hereby declare that so and so is the elected, and then that will be it. That is a dangerous precedent, and it's a danger and a threat to our democracy if that particular position is allowed to stand. I don't think that's the intendment of the law. That's what anybody wants to happen. But there are clear processes that has to be done. But I believe that this whole idea of political party activists thronging to collation centers and threatening, singing all types of songs and all those kinds of things, it's something that shouldn't be part and parcel of our elections, because like I've said on other platforms, the collation process is the easiest part of the entire election, because it's a question of adding numbers from polling stations. It doesn't take anything to do that. And everyone who contested in these elections who knows the results, that's the belief, because the elections are conducted at the polling stations. The results are announced at every polling station. Copies are supposed to be pasted at the polling stations. The political parties are given copies of the pink sheets from the polling stations. And it's on the basis of these pink sheets from the polling station, the statement of poll, that you add them together, you assemble them and put the results on the parliamentary election results collation form. When that is done, then you know you have the full complement of the election results in that constituency. And on that basis, a declaration can be made as opposed to an announcement of the results, not based on anything. In the Kantamanto constituency, for instance, apparently, and this could be independently verified, it's even on the videos, the returning officer that was purportedly announcing the results was holding an A4 sheet where the result had been written on, where they are clear, you understand what I mean, right?
Yeah.
That's not what our elections are about, unfortunately.
Okay, so I mean, the Constitution is clear enough, or the regulations that guide our electoral processes are clear enough, would you say? In terms of what to do, at what point, conflict resolution, they're clear enough. We don't need any review in that regard.
That's what I'm saying, that this election has taught us that people can do all sorts of things to truncate the process, which is supposed to be easy and all that. So maybe we ought to take the security situation much more seriously, and there have to be clear guidelines in terms of who can come to the collation center and all those kinds of things. Because
in fact, that is where most of the conflict erupted from. I was at Ablekuma Central also, and where Slowusu lost her seat, Ablekuma West, and everything was peaceful until we started moving to the collation centers, and the security personnel said only certain people with accreditation can enter. At some point, those who even had accreditation were refused to enter the premises, and that's where the conflict started from. But let's move on. Let's get to legal recourse. Now, if either party is dissatisfied with the court's judgment, what legal avenues are available for appeal or further action? We await Saturday's verdict.
Let's not preempt anything. But speaking generally, where decisions do not go in your favor, depending on the context or depending on the type of case or the decision, there are certain avenues that are available to you. Obviously, an appeal will lie. We know that you can appeal the decisions of the High Court to the Court of Appeal, and there's a subsequent. You may subsequently appeal to the Supreme Court.
I guess I'm asking because I'm wondering what the typical timeline for such processes are, because inauguration is fast approaching.
Yes,
Parliament,
The point is that with these elections, for election-related matters, the court or the judiciary and the Chief Justice as the head of the judiciary has given a special warrant to the High Court, the judges of the High Court, or this particular judge, to deal with all election matters expeditiously. So you'll notice that in the Supreme Court case that came on, I think last week, Friday, thereabout, the court even talked about the timelines. It said that the timelines ought to be abridged. So it gave the NDC 2 days to file. Once they joined them in the mandamus applications before the High Court, gave them 2 days to file their affidavit in opposition, and then gave the MPP as well as the Electoral Commission a day to file supplementary affidavits, if any, and then prescribed or stated that Tuesday will be, which was yesterday, the day before, Tuesday 30th, I believe, 30th, or was it 31st or so, will be the day that the parties would go to the court to argue out the mandamus application, and then we saw what happened during that process. So for election-related issues, parliamentary election disputes, the timelines have been abridged. So definitely there will be some finality one way or the other, even though I foresee that some of these things may go beyond even the inauguration.
Lastly, before you go, given the high public interest in these cases, and I just want to refer back to that Afrobarometer report that said Ghanaians have lost trust in some institutions. The judiciary was part of the list that came out. I think the onus falls on the judiciary to maintain public confidence in its impartiality. How can they achieve that?
That's what's being done by giving everyone a fair hearing, by people being able to access the courts when they feel like they're dissatisfied with the process or with something that had been done or not being done. And that was the whole idea of the whole mandamus application, the fact that the EC wasn't able to do its work. And so the parties involved were demanding that the EC as a public entity do its public duty, that is to collate the results and declare the election results in these constituencies. And the police, being the law enforcement agency, provide security for that collation process to be completed. And so to the extent that the courts are open, accessible, yesterday, New Year's Day, the court was sitting.
Yes.
New Year's Day, it's a holiday, but the courts were sitting, and it's been adjourned for ruling on Saturday, which ordinarily will be a holiday, but the courts are working. So those steps are steps in the right direction that would ensure that there's fairness, there's clarity, and there's finality in all these issues.
Thank you so much, Dr. Agyeman-Badu, for joining us and putting this issue in perspective. He is the Dean, Gimpa Law School. Thank you so much. And that's that for this belt of conversation. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll bring you a conversation on the expectations of the incoming administration. Like we did yesterday, we're looking at the 2025 outlook, and today we are focusing on education. I'll introduce my guests when we return. Please stay. You're live on the AM show across Ghana's 16 regions and around the world on myjoyonline.com. I'm Sweetie Abochi. Let's get into our big stories now. Now, we're continuing our conversation on 2025 outlook, but today we're focusing on education. My guests, we have Dr. Peter Anti, Executive Director for the Institute for Education Studies, and he joins us via Zoom. Doc, good morning.
Good morning, Sweetie.
Okay, great. Happy New Year. It's good to see you. And we also have Divine Kpe in the studio here with me. He's an educationist. Divine, it's good to see you. Good morning.
Good to see you too, Sweetie. Good morning.
Good morning. And later we will be joined by Dr. Clementa Park. He's Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament Education Committee. Gentlemen, let's get into the conversation right away. But I want to start with you, Doc, on Zoom. I want your initial remarks in terms of where we stand. And I also understand that you have a presentation for us this morning. So first, let's begin with, what does the education sector really look like as we speak?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. Ghana is having an education sector that looks promising, despite numerous challenges. Now, if you look at the plan for education, which started from our education strategic plan in 2018, there are certain targets that have been set, which aligns with the global focus of education, that by 2030, this country would or should achieve. Now, these plans led to the beginning or the initiation of certain policies within the education sector. So the plan is to ensure that we improve learning outcomes across all levels of education and ensure efficiency and effective delivery of education, and also provide equitable quality education for all. Now, in order to achieve this, the government decided to touch on various sectors or subsectors within the education sector. So we did some curriculum reforms, or we've done curriculum reforms. We've done some teacher education reforms. We've done teacher monitoring and supervision reforms. We started, or we wanted to do we wanted to do some infrastructure reforms where we did the infrastructure mapping and those things that were carried out by the Ministry of Education. Now, all these things should have led to an improvement in, first and foremost, learning outcomes, and also in the delivery of education at various levels that we have. Unfortunately, some of these interventions are yet to show the kind of results that they need to show. And some of the variables that we look at in assessing the quality of education are also technically going out of hand. Now, if you look at variables like teacher-student ratio at various levels, you see that at the primary level, we are doing one teacher up to around 53 students, which is far above the target that we have set for ourselves, because technically we're supposed to do one to around 25 to 35. At the junior high school level, we are doing one around 1:48, and then at the senior high school level, we are doing 1:45. Which is even the average across the country. In certain schools, we do 1:75, 1:78, 1:80.
Right.
Which means that the number of teachers that are needed to give critical attention to our students, we do not have that kind of number. Again, in terms of classrooms, most of our classrooms are getting out of hand. And if you look at the variable that is used to measure a classroom status or the state of our classroom, you see that over 20% of our classrooms need major repairs. What it means is that they are not supposed to be inhabited by students, or teaching and learning activities are not supposed to should not be carried out in these classrooms. Unfortunately, we have students sitting in these classrooms. Again, you look at the extent to which we have experienced deterioration in our education system, in terms of our infrastructure. You would see that there's been a decline in educational infrastructure from 2017 up to 2021, which means that most of our educational infrastructure, and we talk about educational infrastructure, we are looking at a whole lot of things here, even the learning environment. It means that most of our educational infrastructure are not in a state that we can continue to provide quality education. All these put together affect the quality of education. You can also look at the efficiency and effectiveness of our education system.
Doug, you have to hold for me. This was supposed to be your initial remark, but I understand how passionate you are about this. Let me come back to the student and I'll circle back to you. Divine, so we've had, Dr. Pitanti, he talks about the challenges that plague the educational sector. And, the reforms they had in mind, the ones that they were unable to meet. And in fact, like just last year alone, we had so many issues come up, teacher shortages, curriculum and learning issues here and there, technological integration and all that. But you are on the field, you are an educationist. So more like a review of the year that's just ended before we start talking about the expectations. What would be your assessment so far?
All right, thank you, and good morning to your viewers, and then also Happy New Year, especially to my family and friends. The last 4 years, I would say, or especially the last 2023, we've witnessed continuity of reforms that the government has started. We're talking about issues of teacher education reform particularly. So if you look at teacher education reform, look at the initial level, which is the colleges of education. We have a framework on how we want to train teachers for our classrooms. So there has been a focus on the implementation of that framework. We also noticed that when it comes to teacher licensure, government has also been heavily on that. So a number of teachers have also been licensed to get back into the classroom. And then also on the in-service aspect, we notice that government continues to be having a professional development for teachers. So we have noticed issues of teachers having to undergo professional development programs where they can earn points that will count for their licensure. And there have been some work on issues of infrastructure development, but I see the challenge mainly be our inability to address the gap in underserved communities, the access gap in underserved communities. That is where I noticed that we have not, as a country, we have not been so much heavy on. Yes, reforms have happened, curriculum reform has happened. We have had assessment reform. We also have teacher development reform. When it comes to access to education, where we have to improve infrastructure so that a good number of students, especially in underserved areas, can have access, or where we can close the access gap in those areas. There's a shortfall in that aspect, as well as decongesting classrooms in urban areas. That's also something that, as a country, we have not put on our priority agenda, especially over the, not just last year, but over the years. I think we have not done well when it comes to decongesting classrooms in the urban areas.
I think that's also linked to infrastructure challenges. Because
of course,
if you have the classrooms and the desks, then you can expand.
And issues of desks, you may have not heard in the media space about 1.3 million children that are not having access to writing and sitting and writing spaces. So for me, while we are looking at the quality aspect, which is very good, I think we still need to do much more when it comes to access, especially in the underserved areas of the country. And if we take underserved areas in our education sector, the data shows that predominantly they are in the northern parts of the country and then part of the OT region. So there's a need for us to ensure equity in our educational resource allocation. That's the only way we can close the gap. If we do not put equity at the center of resource distribution, we'll continue to widen the gap, whether it is quality gap, whether it is access gap, we'll continue to widen that. Yeah, of course, when it comes to teacher availability, we do not have issue of teacher shortage in the country. No, Ghana, we are not facing that at all. The issue is much more about how we distribute the teachers. So if you look at the national average, there's enough teacher in the country. But when you want to look at the disaggregation of that data, you'll notice that we have a lot of teachers concentrated in the urban areas because you post them to the rural areas
they don't want to go.
Of the situations, they don't want to be there. So within an average of a year or two, teacher is leaving the rural area trying to get transferred to the urban area. So and let me appreciate the Ghana Education Center. So one of their initiatives that they recently introduced where they asked teachers to choose the areas. So now vacancy is declared in a system, online system. You will now choose the area that you want to be posted to. So in that way, it's a step that the country is taking to address the issue of teacher distribution in the country.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you want to address teacher distribution and you're asking teachers to choose where they want to go, I mean, you're leaving the large areas where people do not actually want to go, you're leaving them to their own fate.
All right, so this is how the system plays. So the system displays vacant areas, all right? So when you go to the system, you don't see an area that actually there is a lot of teachers or where teachers are not, you don't see that in the system. So when a potential teacher logs into the system, has a lot of schools that they are supposed to be to select from. When the school is full, you can't have access to it.
Oh, okay.
And once it is full, it means that your next
find another option.
So by all means, those vacancies declared.
All right.
Don't be filled. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the issues. And now that we're talking about expectations, it's only fair that we sort of revise what the NDC's manifesto was coming into. I mean, before winning the election, they made some promises. They outlined some comprehensive educational policies. They talk about early childhood education, the Bright Beginnings initiative. They talk about basic and education enhancement. Of course, the free senior high school education. They want to continue it, review and continue it. Curriculum reforms, they've talked about integrating science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, vocational skills, and civic education into secondary school curriculum to equip students with relevant skills for the modern workforce. They also talk about teacher welfare and development. They plan to abolish the teacher licensure exam, reinstate automatic employment for qualified teachers, and improve conditions of service through increased salaries, housing provisions, you know, the whole thing. And they talked about addressing double-track system and the inclusive education, decentralization of procurement, you were just talking about that, support of Islamic education and school farms initiatives. Just a run-through of some of the policies that the NDC proposed in their manifestos. So let me start with you, Dr. Pitanti. Let's go straight to general vision and goals. What are the top 3 priorities for the incoming administration in transforming the education sector? What should they be focusing on as we speak? And I believe this is the time you can start your presentation for us.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. What should they be focused on? I think that first and foremost, as I've already indicated, they need to go back to the education strategic plan. I'm very much focused on that because we don't want a situation whereby government comes in and then they would want to do something different from what we have all agreed that we will be doing. So they need to go back to the education strategic plan, look at where we've been able to get to, and then proceed from there. In that perspective, I wouldn't want them to focus on curriculum reforms because we've done extensively on that from the primary level up to the university. A lot of work have gone into curriculum development and curriculum realignment and so on and so forth. So I don't think that they need to pay attention to it. The first thing I would want them to focus on is funding our pre-tertiary education system. Funding our pre-tertiary education system, which is very, very important. Now, most of the things that we need to do at the pre-tertiary level boils down to education. All the challenges that we are talking about boils down to education. So if they want to achieve the targets of 2030, then there should be a model that would be designed to fund pre-tertiary education. I know that they have said that they would want to find a sustainable source of funding for the free senior high school. I'm tempted to say, and I think I agree with Nat, that is now proposing that there should be a fund for pre-tertiary education, not only the free senior high school or not only the basic schools as Nat is proposing. I think that there should be a fund for pre-tertiary education where we will look for sources from different areas, multiple sources, some coming from the oil, some coming from government coffers, specific redesignation of certain taxes, like instead of abolishing the COVID tax, you can redesignate it and make it something, pre-tertiary education tax, something like that, so that we have a pool of resources that will go into funding pre-tertiary education. And that would stem from early grade to the senior high school. So you are covered in terms of infrastructure, you are covered in terms of the challenges that are facing the free senior high school, you are covered in terms of most of the things that we are talking about, complaining about. The second thing I would want the government to pay particular attention to is teacher development issues, teacher welfare. Let me put it that way, teacher welfare issues. You see, at the center of everything that we do is the teacher. And if the teacher is not comfortable, it means that the delivery of education is going to be affected. Yes, there's been a lot of reforms in that particular area, but when it comes to practical teacher welfare issues, we seem not to have paid much attention to it. All the parties, you read their manifestos and they talk to you about giving teachers accommodation, enable teachers to have access to some sort of transport, transportation, something. They will tell you about they trying to help the teacher to secure himself and his family, but then they get to power and a little or nothing is done at all for the teacher. And I think that we need to pay particular attention to teachers' welfare in terms of accommodation. You see, the problem that we have with the deployment of teachers in terms of going to these rural areas is simple. Because if I'm a young guy coming up and I'm posted to an area where I don't feel secure for my future, where my children cannot get access to good water, cannot get access to mobile network, internet, and so on and so forth, there is no way that I will go there. And even if I go there, within the next 1 or 2 years, I will move away from those places. That is why when you look at these NGOs and these donor partners, when they are doing any intervention in any rural area, they build a school and they build a teachers' quarters so that the teachers who are going to teach in those schools are comfortable in terms of accommodation and the other things that they need. And we need to start thinking around that particular area. So that is my second point. My third point is the relationship that would be established among the authorities and the various stakeholders. And I think that is going to be kick-started by the supposed conversation that they have promised. I think that the education sector is for all of us, and I keep saying this, all of us have a stake in the education sector. Your child, your sister, your brother, my brother, every person's relative or relation is in the education sector. Therefore, when it comes to discussions about education issues, it should be open to all of us to have a say and have a contribution to the kind of things that we want to do in the sector. And then also listen and then have an open door policy so that people can voice out their challenges, and as they are being voiced out, it's going to be addressed. I don't think we did much with that in this with this particular administration, and I'm hoping that going forward, whoever has the ministry should be somebody who will have an open door policy, who listens and who takes the feedback from the people very seriously, so that he can use that to transform the sector. We can do all that we want to do, but if the people do not feel that these are what is required to transform the education sector, that kind of delivery that we want to have, we will not be able to get that. So for me, these are the three things that we need to look at. You need to look at funding pre-tertiary education. I'm not saying that is the most important thing, but of course, the three supposed to funding pre-tertiary education, which will deal with all the challenges there. I'm looking at teacher welfare, and I'm also looking at stakeholder consultation and collaboration between the Ministry of Education and all the other relevant stakeholders.
Right.
Let me make this last point.
Okay.
If you look at the sector, what most of us use to do most of our analysis in the sector is what was called the Education Sector Performance Report. If you go back to the years, every year the Ministry of Education publishes the Education Sector Performance Report. Since 2000, this administration have not been able to publish a single report in the education sector. So I ask myself,
if you say since 2000, it can't be this administration.
2020, sorry.
Okay.
Since 2020. In fact, I think the last report was published in 2018 or so that covered a lot of the factors that we're looking at. Since then, they have not been able to publish a single report. And if you talk to most of the donor agencies, they are very worried because those are the things that we use to match how improvements are carried out in the education sector and for the research and other things that we do. If they so much claim that there's a lot that has been done, why did they or why have they stopped publishing that report that was published every year to let us gauge the improvement in the sector? So I'm saying that in going forward, we need to go back to the publishing of this report so that all of us will gauge the improvement that are being done, and then we'll be able to know whether we are heading towards our target for 2030 or we are drifting away from it.
I hope they're listening to you because this sounds like they have their work cut out for them. I'll come to you in a bit, Divine. But one of the biggest stories in the country right now is that fire that gutted some parts of Kantamanto. I understand we have our reporter live on ground to bring us live update. Gentlemen, just hold for me. Let's go quickly to Kantamanto and we'll get back into the studio. Let's cross over now to Kantamanto and get live updates on what's happening right now in terms of whether or not they've successfully put out the fire. Collins, what's happening on ground?
Currently at Kantamanto, where the fire has ravaged several shops here currently, and nothing can be picked here. But before we give the situational report, I have the public relations officer for the Ghana Fire Service here, Mr. Alex Kenate here, that we want to speak to him to find out what really happened, if the preliminary investigations has revealed what caused the fire outbreak. Good morning, Mr. Alex.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Right. First of all, what is the situation at this moment?
So at this moment, I'm being careful not to say it's under control, but we are seeing that it's under control. It's out of danger. The fear that would have had ordinarily with fires like this has been calm. We've contained the fire. As you can see, we contained the fire from further spreading into this building and that building. So the fire is contained. I can say it's under control, and we are working hard to make sure that it's finally extinguished, and then we didn't leave room for reignition of the fire once we finish extinguishing.
When did the distress call came?
So unfortunately, there was no distress call. Our officers, we have what we call station outlook, where if we see any thick smoke in the air, we trace it. So officers actually did a station outlook, and based on the station outlook, as they were proceeding, then a motor rider came to the station to report about the fire. So it was after the appliance had moved, then people started calling. So we didn't come here based on a call, but we came out based on station outlook. So that was around 1:18. So by 1:20, our crew arrived here at the fire scene, and upon arriving at the fire scene, they realized the fire was well alight. So they had to call for more reinforcements. So as we speak, we have 13 fire tenders garnered all over from Accra especially, and a few from Tema and then Spintex Road, all here at the scene to make sure that the situation is put under control.
What really caused the fire? Do we know?
So for what caused the fire, we are still investigating. During investigations are done during firefighting. So as we fight fires, we investigate, and so people are pointing to arson. We don't rule out arson. It could be a cause. It could be something else. Other information we are gathering is that after the market women or the market folks have closed, the people here resort to turning this place into a bar and brothel. So wherever there's bar and brothel, people smoke, and when people smoke, they indiscriminately dispose of these bats, and these bats can fall on anything. So yes, it could be arson, it could be electrical fault, it could again be indiscriminate disposal of these cigarette bats as you know, or even negligence. And the fact that people resort to cooking in the markets is a very worrying situation, because as we were fighting a fire, explosions kept going off, you know, due to the gas cylinders people had stored inside their stores and shops.
Before we look at the number of shops that have been destroyed here and some of the items that were in, what were some of the challenges that the fire service faced when they got here?
Well, we faced quite a lot of challenges. Accessibility was one. The good thing for us is that at the early hours when we came, accessibility wasn't too much of a problem, you know, apart from the interferences from people. But as the day dawned, like, you know, the morning came, accessibility became a problem, because it became a busy day, cars coming in, the road getting blocked, every congestion happening, and then the fact that there was no functional hydrant within this terrain. So we had to resort to traveling all the way to Farisco and then to Ginari to go and replenish and come back. So you can imagine the distance from here to Ginari at Circle, and then being in traffic all the way coming back here again to fight the fire. It wasn't a mean job, you know. So those are some of the obstacles. Human interferences is one of the obstacles again that we faced, and the fact that we don't have enough fire attendants in the system. It's a very worrying situation for us as a service, because as I talked to you, we've dispatched almost all the fire attendants in Accra to this scene. I think including Flagstaff House, including Parliament. The only fire attendants left, I can say, is the fire attendants at Agyeman-Badu, Anya, and then maybe Electoral Commission. Other than that, all other fire attendants are here. So if there's any other fire within Accra, it will be a very big challenge, because all the tenders are here. So we will ask and we will plead that more tenders should be purchased for the fire service, so that in the case where we have serious fires like this, even if we commit a lot of fire tenders, we still have a lot more on standby to be able to take care of the situation when it happens simultaneously.
Before we go, how many shops have been destroyed so far, and what were some of the items in the shops?
Well, I'm looking at over 100 stalls and shops, so over 100, but I would want to focus on what we've been able to salvage. This story building was salvaged, even this story building we are under was salvaged. The Ghana Commercial Bank was salvaged. Mind you, the Commercial Bank is a very important installation, and also the fact that the bank had a standby generator, and at the same time they had a diesel tanker at the back. So if we had not done enough cooling, the fire coming into contact with the diesel could have caused a lot of problems. So we've been yes, there's been some damages, but trust me, the salvage has been much more than the damage.
Thank you, Mr. Alex Kenati. So that's the public relations officer for the Ghana Fire Service. They're giving us an update on the situation so far. Now, let's engage some of the shop owners who they have been affected here. Good morning, please. What's your name?
Your friend Belinda.
Belinda, again, I want to say now, also come more shop action.
Mr. Metuade wa but ye also ne wa e de nyamegum but ye also ne jana kan kakra na my sister so ton tare no so ne nyamahye na my boyfriend so me down for no so ne nyamahye no so ne stores me no ton tare ni paba wo no so ne nyamahye.
The time be na what is a jana to ha say
me say no be 3 me sorry na me nyaka nti me enten by 5 na me ba na nyama ni na ahye.
Right, a day na Obeka, the actual banner and for a show, Sabia, Omopese, Momramomoa in any form of support.
Oh, the American travel say, oh, we are mobile. A bit more to say, I could you loan near the Ejuma, ye near Yankasa Isaka the Ejuma, into Omboy and Sakakran, Benyane, the Asha Sibiuma, because a mobile, ye need be a befani, a sanya scanibium. Nti yesreno nipa bia de nyama hye no yesre aban sending pay for no so mo hu ye mobo na mo mboa yesre mo pa.
All right, thank you. So all that she is saying is that she herself, she has a shop as well as her boyfriend and another relative of hers that they have been affected and they are pleading with the government to come to their aid. So this is the area that the fire has destroyed over 100 shops, and the building that we can see, the story building, about 4-story building, a 4-story building there, the fire service claimed that they have been able to salvage, and also there is another building here that they have been able to salvage also. There are a lot of items that have been destroyed there. I still have some of the affected shop owners here that I want to engage. Mommy, please, good morning.
Morning.
What's your name? Pacho Frose?
Pacho Frame Naomi.
Naomi, Pacho, then now you have say.
Pacho, me ton body sprays. Ewa hanom. Na anope mada me down here frame me say like a hair shinty. Sorry, bra. Nisa anope me sorry ya me dimrika me ba enso. The omo kan yesa nya hye she knew nipa be ya fa ho bi.
Shop no niome wo mina hye.
Oh, me de me ni shop but me shedwa wa ha na ye de niama no si ochman wa ha ti ho no warehouse na e wa ye de niama si no ye ba ye no bibia ashe
bia wo niama wo warehouse nyina ashe
me niama wo ho nyina ashe
se de na wo ye
bibia no ye be ya fa ho se nya si awie but omo bo mo gusu dum janu so still la omo ya sani ekonosa obi nim baby e free ya e buy
I decided to be not better abani.
Me hu ne men campo. The ebe kan say aban no ntwa nani no meboa because enye easy. Awofo no ebinum agigi loan no mo de ye adwuma. E na akoba ne say no, e ba ne say ya chese. Ye hu de ebe ka enye si awie bibia no ayebe ya fa.
Sorry. So she said she sells on the stretch on the pavement, and she keeps her things in one of the warehouse which the fire has destroyed the shop. All her items, she has lost all the items there, and she's pleading with the government to come to their aid. I still have more people here. Please, good morning, and what's your name?
My name is Kofinto.
What do you do here?
I'm a keeper as a shop. Me shop wo ha sei. Na de wo ho ne se eja ne bae no ade ase ba 11:32. Na ha light off. Ana enkrofo bebre amma adwuma. TMBA shops ni ade. Te ja ne to mu no me shop me first the menini ye opposite. Ho na ade ne start here. It start here ne ba me what here professor e be yi boy no. But the one eja no e ba no na no ye din sebi o na ye for so say be yi boy no but amanisa wusie diti me kura no ye bo me abombo na de ba bonten na ma ye mere because wusie ni farm so san me for so say na manfo sika wo me ho a ye say me ko budan ani na me yi obi 600 million obi 40 million ni ade ni nyina ase sisi an de atompa bo because ye ni da so afi na esa be start class 1 because sisi an ha mo bi anfa excavator be si ase omu be dwiri ha esa the trouble be ba se na patana ye no obi aba obehu se ne ha e na ogina ton na de because ye ni babi a ye kọ Kantamanto ye ni babi a amanfo nwama ahye over millions of millions eye demand pa ti esra ban o meye yemwa because any engi wo for ye ni da brebe o babi a because light of omudundum wa ha na no odin light omudundum wa na no odin me kasa na misu because me ya me kitan yere kitan kola nu aha na me didi nti abane sa adwuma be na me nkoye me kobokro me phones ni me bibia ase e wo inside me sika 600 million 40 million 30 million ni nyina me yesa me kofa be me hwe ade no se na ekọ no me di agora mewu
Sorry. So he says that he has lost over 67,000 Ghana cedis. He attempted to get the money from the shop when he heard that fire, his shop is burning, but he couldn't. So he is pleading with government to help them, and also they are not expecting anyone to come and tell them that they should move out of Kantamanto. This is the place that they are going to stay. So if there is any development that they have to come and undertake, they have to come and undertake it. But they are not going to leave the place. But currently, the fire service has been able to. Calm the situation. So now the situation is under control here. I can see about 13 fire tenders here. The situation of where the market was
rather sad story coming in there. Our sympathies, to those victims, those shop owners. And the crux of the matter is the fire service does not know yet the cause of the fire. The residents are suspecting arson, but that cannot be confirmed as yet, and they're asking for authorities to come to their aid. Now, let's continue our conversation on the 2025 education outlook. Dr. Pitanti was just telling us his top priorities that the incoming administration should focus on. Initially, you mentioned the education strategic plan, which they should return to, but you mainly talked about funding pre-tertiary education, looking at teacher welfare, and a broader engagement between stakeholders and teachers. The various stakeholders in the education sector. It's interesting that he left out, and this is to you, Divine, he left out curriculum reform. Is that because we've had enough curriculum reform? But what would be your top three? If you agree, as someone who's on the field as an educationist, do you agree that these three top it all, the things that the incoming administration should be focusing on?
All right, thank you. Of course, I agree with Peter on the issues that he listed. There are issues that governments must pay attention to, for me especially when it comes to paying attention to teachers, their welfare, because at the center of every education, quality education system is the teacher. And of course, as we are looking at developing their capacity, even at the initial level and at the in-service level, it shouldn't end at just enhancing their capacity, but they must be motivated. Because it is one thing to ensure that the teacher has the capacity, and it is another thing to ensure that the teacher is motivated to deploy that capacity to the fullest maximum. So it's very critical. You asked about reform. When it comes to the reform, curriculum reform, I don't think we need any new reform. We've just started a reform at the basic education level in 2019. What is very important now is for the incoming administration to see how they can support this ongoing reform, because especially availability of teaching and learning resources to support the implementation of this particular curriculum reform is very critical. Otherwise, you can have a very good reform curriculum, but if you don't have the resources available to support their implementation, it will not get the maximum benefit of it. But the reality is that the curriculum reform we have done is very good. If you look at the curriculum, the issues that it has emphasized, contemporary issues, that it has also highlight issues of depth over the breadth is something critical. And we are also seeing the reform at the secondary school level.
Yes.
We have started the implementation of the new curriculum. So the most important thing at the curriculum reform aspect is the resources availability to support their implementation. But when you ask me about my priority, what the incoming administration should focus on is to, first of all, they need to understand the ongoing reforms. At times you may be tempted to be in a hurry to implement your own promises, and then you may end up putting or setting aside ongoing reforms. I think the reforms that we've witnessed over the years, they're in the right direction. And what the incoming administration needs to do is to see how their promises can be situated within this reform, so that while we are continuing the reform implementation, we are at the same time seeing they are also seeing the implementation of their own promises, manifesto promises. But I think they need to also focus on addressing issues of access in underserved areas. We still have a good number of students or children that are out of school. At least you can talk of about 1.4 million children that are out of school. If you look at the data from the Ghana Statistical Service, of about 1.2 million never been to school before. So there's a need for us to still prioritize access. And if you look at access deficit, it is mostly in underserved areas. So that needs to be addressed. The priority has to be given to that. And then also decongesting classrooms in our urban areas. We still have classroom having a size of about 80 in some of the areas. That is far above the norm. So that has to be, the norm is to be 1:35 at the primary school level. But we are having a very large class in most of the urban areas. So priority has to be given to that to decongest our urban schools. But again, digital transformation has to be at the center of issues that the incoming administration needs to focus on, especially at the basic education level. 21st century is very critical that we begin to see consciously the integration of educational technology into our teaching and learning process. In fact, if we are able to do that, the benefits are enormous. So, but currently, if you look at the data, it's only 15% of our primary schools that are having functioning ICT lab, and if you move to the junior high school, it's about 13%. I'm not sure in this age we should be at this rate. So there's a need for the incoming administration to prioritize digital transformation at the basic education level. It may not be one laptop, one student at the basic education level, but it can be about resourcing the ICT centers in the various schools.
Let me put you on the spot on that point. Do you think that this outgoing administration, instead of distributing laptops and tablets to students, they could have put the money to better use by resourcing the various ICT labs, or even giving the schools that don't have a functioning ICT lab one? That would have been a better choice than giving the individual students tablets?
All right. Resourcing the ICT lab is also an option. But if you look at the overall objective that they wanted to achieve with the one student, one laptop, they wanted to digitize the curriculum and then the textbooks. So it means that if you resource the ICT centers, the textbook would not be available to, to the students. The curriculum also will not be available to the teacher. Okay. So that's the option of the one student, one tablet. And the fact also remains is that in the very long run, currently, it looks like a very huge investment. But in a very long run, the benefit is over there, because the recurring budget of you producing textbook, hard copy textbook, often would have been reduced if you are able to invest in digital curriculum and digital textbooks. Okay. So the benefits are there. So I will not bafflement that particular initiative. But I mentioned the issue of digital transformation. But again, if you look at the promises that this administration has made, there are a lot, especially when it comes to the education sector, a lot of promises that have been made. And they will need resources to be able to implement their various promises. And that is where I think that their priority has to be looking at how they can rake in more revenue to be able to implement some of these initiatives that they wanted to embark on. And let me just mention some of a few things I think they can do to be able to briefly. Yeah. All right. Well, number one will be to look at how they capacitate the local assemblies, the MMDAs, to raise revenues for education purpose. I think that we have not looked at options of raising revenue at the local level enough towards supporting education. If you're able to do that and commit percentage, and I say, okay, at least 10% of that revenue should go towards education, we can begin to address some of these infrastructure challenges at that level. Another option would be to also look at some of this innovative way of education financing in contemporary time, like debt for education swap. You know, as a country, we are heavily burdened when it comes to the debt that is on our net. So what can be done is to look at options. Is there a way that we can engage creditors? I know we are in an IMF, and it's quite the pros and cons are there. But we have to look if there's an option for them to swap debt for education. It's something that other countries are doing. Maybe your debt can be lessened, or the interest rate can be lessened, so that in alternative form, you are to increase your spending in education so that your creditors can lessen the debt burden on you or reduce the rates at which you pay your interest rate. Okay. So these are some of the options. But alternatively, spending efficiency has to be at the center of everything that the government does. So that the little that will be put into education, we can get the maximum out for it. For every 1 cedi that we put into education, we should see value for it. So there should be an option for competitive procurement, so that things that we are procuring, we get value for it. And then also, lastly, I think this is very critical. There has to be an oversight on how we spend money. Because if you look at Auditor General's reports every year, you notice that a lot of money that we put into the education sector, there will be issues of mismanagement. So how do we address that issue? Is to ensure that we strengthen the financial management at the various education sector institution level, so that we can block some of these leakages, that the very little that will be putting into education sector in terms of finances can also yield maximum output.
All right. And the common thread that ran between your submission and Dog's submission is that human resources in terms of teacher welfare and teacher development. But Dr. Clement Apak joins the conversation and he's on phone. Doc, thank you so much for joining. Dr. Clement Apak is Deputy Ranking Member of Parliament Education Committee. We are doing an assessment and an assessment of previous year, and then looking at expectations for the incoming administration in terms of education. I'd like to find out from you, as a Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament Education Committee, what would be your assessment of the outgoing administration successes in terms of the education sector? Where do you think they overpromised and underdelivered?
Well, let me say good morning to you and to my co-panelists, as well as the viewers.
Right.
I think that your question is not a fair question. Obviously, you know that I am a member of the opposition MPP, NDC party. Of course, we just won power, and hopefully in the next few days, we will be taking over. You have known me to be a very ardent critic of the current government and its educational policies. So when you pose a question like this, you create a situation that would...
Well, Doc, I just want to know what your overall assessment is in terms of how they fared with the education sector. There are many issues that came up. There are many successes as well that we can talk about. I'm just looking for a more general assessment in terms of, at the end of the tenure, what have they done that is commendable? What are the gaps that we should be looking at before we look at the expectations of your administration?
Well, that is why I'm saying it will be difficult, because I truly cannot single out anything that they have done that is commendable. I know that, reforms have taken place in terms of curriculum, in terms of teacher training, but these are reforms that are time sensitive and are mandated. So, for example, we had the reforms with regards to basic education, where we transitioned from where we were to what we now call the standard-based curriculum. But then again, when you look at the reforms, they are not complete, because after the reforms took place, the teaching and learning material that ought to have accompanied the reforms to make sure that we get a full complement in terms of the students, in terms of the teachers, and the available material to instruct our wards on the basis of the new curriculum, are yet to be fully provided, and it is already 5 years. And every 5 years, we have to look at curriculum reforms again. So in the area of the standard-based curriculum, whilst it was a laudable idea, the implementation of those reforms have not been holistic. We cannot even say we have achieved 60% of the said reforms. Then when we look at the area of furniture and the deficit, it has compounded over the years. One is not saying that we've never really had challenges to do with adequate furniture. But when you have a situation where today, according to Africa Education Watch, about 2.3 million students have no access to furniture. Clearly, that is something that we can flag as having not been properly addressed within the context of the current dispensation. Then we can also look at the example of capitation grants and the fact that we are speaking of arrears cumulatively the equivalent of 2 years, which definitely creates problems for the management of public basic schools. Is the capitation grant that is used as the basis to manage and run the schools, to procure and assess the services of carpenters and masons to fix broken down walls, cracked walls, fix windows, to organize activities like sporting activities, to organize activities like mock exams and what have you. And because the capitation grants are not remitted regularly and timeously, all of these activities have been affected. I heard colleagues earlier on speak about matters to do with teacher motivation and even teacher inadequacy, particularly in rural and underserved communities. That continues to be a challenge. We know of schools in some rural communities where you don't even have one teacher, sometimes one teacher manning from primary 1 to primary 6. So the issues are many. And unfortunately for us, this government has been very, very cagey in sharing proper data and information on what is going on in the educational sector. So as we sit, we are now beginning to learn a lot more post the election about some of the endemic challenges within the system. And I can tell you that in the next few days, when a new government takes over, we will be shocked to get to know the level of challenges bedeviling the educational sector in general, and particularly basic education specifically.
And Doc, you say that in the past 8 years, there's nothing that this administration has done that's commendable. Wouldn't you say free SHS? I mean, there are issues that came up, we know, but isn't that one thing that we can commend for this government?
Well, from where I sit, we should not be giving the government credit because we have argued that the concept of free senior high school is not a brainchild of Akufo-Addo and Bawumia. The concept is embedded in Ghana's constitution. And we have even argued, rightly so, that we started what many have described as the progressive variant of the policy. They came and they said they wanted to do it wholesale. But if I may take you back into history, when they took over the reins of governance in 2017, our students who were in senior high school 2 and 3 were not beneficiaries of the current arrangement. The current arrangement started with the students who took their places as first-year students in 2017. Be as it may, you and I are now beginning to read from the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools the challenges that were hidden from most of us. We are now hearing of arrears of all sorts going back to 2021, for which we are told that if not addressed, schools ought not to be reopened on the 3rd of January, which is going to be tomorrow. So you tell me, how is this something that we should be gloating about? And then when they say, oh, because of the free senior high school, some 5.7 million Ghanaian children are in school or have gone through the process. When in fact, cumulatively, if you look at the enrollment figures from 2017 when the first cohort took up their places, to 2024. Enrollment, I'm not even talking about retention or even completion. Enrollment is just about 3.1 million students. So where did they get the 5 million and above students that they claim are beneficiaries of the free senior high school policy? So the point I'm trying to make is that we have said that one of the things that we are going to do, your mama has said, and it is in our manifesto, is to hold a national stakeholders conference on education to bring on board all stakeholders for us to have an honest, dispassionate, non-partisan assessment of the educational sector and to look at where the challenges are and to collectively fashion a way of addressing them. And I think that's the best way to go because, simply put, the information currently available from this government is not reliable.
Thank you so much, Dr. Clement Park. That's Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament Education Committee. Gentlemen, I am back to you. Now, I noticed that teacher development and welfare is one key thing that ran through both your submissions. And so I want to stay on that a bit. And unfortunately, we don't have enough time to get into this. But over the years, concerns have been raised about recruitment, employment, general welfare, and all that, as specific as you can be. And in fact, I want to start with, Doc, on Zoom. Please, as specific as you can be, how do we actually tackle the issues that stem from teacher development and welfare? And this will be my final bit to you, so be as comprehensive as you can be.
All right, thank you. Well, I think that I'm aware that there was a teacher policy document that was being developed. I don't know the state of that. I will have to check whether they were able to put that teacher policy document together. And I think that's the day that I had the presentation, I was in a meeting. I felt that it was very comprehensive, dealing with all the challenges that the teacher faces in the sector. So we would have to check whether that document was fully developed and how it is going to be implemented. So we need to start from there. We need to put together what the aspirations for the teacher should be. We need to put that on paper and then start an implementation process. If that document is implemented, I think most of the concerns that we talk about are in there, and I think they have been addressed. So that is what I think need to be done, because we need to ensure that the teacher is comfortable psychologically, emotionally, financially, in all aspects, in terms of the teacher promotions, in terms of the teacher accommodation, in terms of the teacher salary and allowances. All these things need to be looked at. And if you're able to deal with this, if you critically look at the challenges that we face in education in terms of industrial actions, you see that most of them, 90% or almost 100% of them, is related to teacher welfare. So it means that when you're addressing these challenges, you are technically removing that challenge that you have, where teachers are going on strike today, they are not coming to school tomorrow, they are doing this and that. You are addressing all that, and you are improving efficiency and ensuring that the contact hours are used for what they are supposed to be used for. And I think that we need to, as the honorable member said, we need to have a comprehensive conversation also around how we want the Ghanaian teacher to be. I say that we have not respected the teacher for so long, and it's time that the teacher takes its rightful place in the teaching profession. As we speak now, you know that CITAC has declared an indefinite strike. And this issue has been pending for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Now, imagine that it was, I'm just putting any other profession there. You think that we would have been so reluctant to address the challenges of CITAC and wait till they declaring strike? This year, last year alone, they went on strike for 2 or 3 times. And it's the same issue about teacher welfare promotions and other issues. We did not pay particular attention to it. Promises were given and they were not adhered to. And now they are going on strike. We don't know the other groups in the education front that are also preparing to go on strike.
Right.
These are the issues that we need to find a way to bring all of us together, see the way forward, and then codify whatever it is that we want to see in the education front in terms of the education workers' welfare. And if we're able to do that, I think that we'll be able
Peter, we just lost you. We lost your sound. I'm not sure what happened there, but thank you so much for joining us and helping us discuss this. Let me wrap with you in the studio, Divine. As specific as possible. I know you either agree, reiterate, add your own points to how we can solve the issues. Looks like the teacher is the backbone of the successes of the education sector, right? From all across, the tertiary, pre-tertiary, basic, it's the teacher. That is the focus now. How do we change the narrative?
All right. One, we have implemented several interventions, financial and non-financial interventions, aimed at motivating the teacher. What we firstly need to do is to review these interventions to see whether they have had any impact on teacher motivation. If they have had, or if there are challenges, how do we address the challenges in these existing teacher motivation packages? Then we'll know that, okay, whether we have implemented single spine, how has it affected teachers' salary? We have implemented steady leave for teachers. What are the challenges? Has it impacted motivation? Yeah. Promotion issues, there are still issues with promotion. How do we address them so that they can also improve teacher motivation? But very key is also addressing the issue of teacher presence in the underserved areas. And several promises have been made over the years to commit some percentage of teachers' basic salary to them if they will accept posting to the underserved areas. But these promises have never been implemented. Yeah. The NDC has made that as a manifesto promise. I'm expecting that that promise will also be implemented once they assume office. The issues have been that how do we determine if a teacher qualifies for this particular package as underserved. I think we don't even have to have that debate because it's very easy for us to understand a teacher that is an underserved area. GS already has a way of classifying districts that are underserved districts. And they have about 75 districts that they have classified as underserved districts. That can serve as a starting point for us to begin to identify teachers that are in areas that we can say should be benefiting from the rural area allowance. So for me, that argument that how do we identify teachers that are in a service to benefit from the package is already mooted. We don't even have to go there. We need to commit to it to ensure that that package is actually implemented. But away from that, finally, I know you would want to have my concluding thought as well. I'm very expecting from the incoming administration to be very heavy on financing issues, as I've already mentioned. I've mentioned spending efficiency, but the next thing when it comes to finances is for them to look at equity or to put equity at their investments or resource allocation. Over the year, I have noticed that we have invested, but at the end of the day, we will not put equity at the heart of it. So areas that already have the resources, we are still pushing resources to them. Areas that may not be having resources, we are depriving them. So if we're able to put equity at the heart of educational resource distribution, we can address some of the challenges. And then lastly, there's a need for us to look at the Get Fund Act. If we look at the fund, how expenditure has been expended over the years, there's a current development where we are seeing a good percentage of the fund going to non-infrastructure projects. Of course, when the fund was set up in 2000, the main object is to improve infrastructure in our education institutions. But now look at that, non-infrastructure projects continue to be heaped on the fund, and we are using the fund to resource non-infrastructure projects, like the one student, one laptop, the one teacher, one laptop. These are non-infrastructure projects, and we are always asking Get Fund to finance them. When you Get Fund is financing these non-infrastructure projects, then you begin to see that we'll be having schools under trees. We continue to have students who continue to sit on the floor to learn because there's not much space for Get Fund to undertake infrastructure projects. So the Get Fund should be amended. That will make it statutory that at least 70% of the fund is committed towards infrastructure projects. If 30% is left for non-infrastructure, that is fair enough.
Hopefully we get more time in the course of the year to get into more issues like these. But thank you so much for joining. Divine Kpe is an educationist. We also had Dr. Clement Apak, Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament Education Committee. And then, of course, Dr. Peter Anti. He's the Executive Director for the Institute for Education Studies. They all helped us to gauge what to expect of the incoming administration in terms of education. Now, I want to take you back to Kantamanto because it is hot. Reactions are pouring in. People have so much to say. Collins Paul, what else do you have to report?
Right, so sweetie, currently, as you can see, the aerial view, even though the fire service have been able to bring the situation under control, they are still here making sure that they completely quench the fire. But people are here, scrap dealers are also in. As people are counting their losses, they are also in trying to get some metal that they can go and sell. So that's what is happening over there. But we still have some of the shop owners here that we want to engage. Please, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Please, what's your name? Do you own a shop here?
Yeah, that's my shop. These two shops. Unfortunately, this is my two shops. But down here, I have another shop too at the down. The fire started at 1 o'clock a.m. Since I came here about 33 or 35 years ago, I have never experienced such thing before. But in my mind, I can see that this place needs to be looked at, especially the government, because our electrical are not good. The way people are just sleeping here without any protection. So I'm pleading on all of people that have their things have been burned. Millions of cities have been destroyed here. Millions of cities have been destroyed. So we are pleading for the government, the new elect government that is coming in, to come and assist us. Many of them, the ladies and the women, some of them have been collapsed. They have been rushed to hospital. Some of them have been died. Just what happened right now. You can see the way I'm speaking. Even I cannot speak well. By the grace of God, that me too, my own have not been consumed. So we are pleading. You can see I'm shaking. I've never experienced such thing before. We shouldn't take it as a political. No. People are saying it's a political. Here's MPP, and then that's why there's no. I'm speaking as a citizen of Ghana for the government to come to our aid immediately. Even as I'm speaking now, if they can take this thing, delegate to come here, to come and see. Say Akufo-Addo government is on now. They should allow people to come here immediately.
You mean they should bring in authorities to come and assess the situation?
Yes, the authorities should rush in right now, because what is happening here now is very assault. I cannot believe in my eyes. People are collapsing. They are rushing them to the hospital now. So please, let them rush and come here right now and come and see the situation at hand right now.
Right. Thank you. So that's the situation here. Over 100 shops have been destroyed with millions of Ghana cedis, millions of cedis being destroyed here. I have an eyewitness here who saw the situation when the situation was unfolding. Please, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Mpacho, on what to say no pay?
Bako jana no me yeso enye.
Ade na enye.
Cause you free if ba ye japade na say the shop na hyehe. And the reason why my shop no hyehe an say ekwan me ho ya ifo bombe for ma bedum sa kwan five from ma bedum no ma bombata so mfanifo no mo de agisika ti ka an ba kro munya ba mi ede o magina eno mo dum jam na se me kwala asem kakra me se otuma aka ne se the year bia opposition party beba power bia no market we she ye nim reason kra e shawa sa de no ba even maybe 2013 the opposition party come year the same as and then second market yes na je nim reason kra e wo ha se me de man kwala asem american kra ne say kamu say Omka sa amba maji even though abanzo be si store na nyobi an be nya sky dey agibi nti de betuma aba na say omo secret air tight e wo market ya na kwa ese efie ebi wo vufuo ebi board dance ebi num wi ebi num koke no bi ape no market wa ha ti betuma abo an say omo secret air tight o market ya no anu asem akra metuma kan
Leo na wo ka say ekwan no kra na fire service on be fa so aba no esi na amanfo bi no ma digigiska anu ntina ma kwani na tight info na mo de sa kwani na de
digigiska ne o market ya no ene metumi mo obi din na o say otrofo mi nyima dan the bat say kwan da ho a first me ba afro me ba ma chepa more than 25 years in market here na ekwan de dam e wa ha ti kwan na dam na o hwe ya no ma bom patesi o no ma ton amu so and the BBC sa no kwan bia na ma fire service here e fa ma ba wa ha enu ti na ma sa problem we na ba wa ha no is aban ba so obesi a me say no si en ha me but e be bo an so obesi no yo bia na menya ska top pateni bi escafo na be there e be san top patani wo bi unya bi so ati ase unya bi ntina me pese se na be ba script be tight
wan ka se juma be na odi wa
oh me ana me wholesale manager ba me jai say me offer am abanso agency interview me offer am dey about saba toilet ya dey adwuma na na ba ya se ye tena na ni ye kofi empty ya anya adwuma bia.
Thank you. So what he is saying is that he's pleading with the government to come to their aid in aftermath of this, and when the market is being built, they want tight security here, and also pleading with the market or leaders to stop giving out the pavement and the main road, renting it out for people to sell on the roads. They are pleading because that is one of the reasons why the whole situation escalated, because when the fire service came here, they didn't have smooth access to the place that was burning. The PRO for the Ghana Fire Service, Alex Kenati, also attributed the same situation to what may have escalated the fire, because when they came here, they couldn't have smooth access to the place, even though they had 13 fire tenders here. I still have people here, some of the shop owners and people who sells in the shop here, that we want to speak to get their thoughts on the situation so far. Good morning.
Fine morning.
Pacho Frosing.
Pacho me the incredible. Me here you have me was shop wa, and at the best 1 o'clock, na ma call about kwan frame me. Say e ja to Kantamanto. Nyame nkwan ko hye. Ya shop ni na hye. Nti na e ba yentumi anye bibia. Na se na yempe ebinu medi kaka no. Sa market no ni ekoso no yenim bibia sa de na efri. Nti se aban no behwe na wa ma security ay tight ha. Na abade no bagim na wa yen hye papa. Na wesi market no let's obia benya ne chefa ebebo ayen market is Kantamanto lolu kwan nim BBC disaster here 5 service nya ka na wa fem enye fe enti ye sire mpenifo mo Kantamanto ha eni mpenifo wodi o man so no wonka wohumbom no wohwe na wo ma security nya tight e wo Kantamanto ha mayen because eni pedidi wo Kantamanto na e do so pa ejapade a ahwe hande no eni pa o mo japade ahwe won sika ahwe wo hande no e sika eso anu ko akire yi pa nze be se mpenifo mo mbo ayen na mo mbo aduan ho ban mayen
na shop na nkasa no so shop ekade ahye no ho ene ma be sa na ne wo
me screen printer me screens nkrofo ntare ene ma me ye ho adwuma ma pata bibia ahye
na ne ma wo no hwa ne amount ne quantity ne be dru be se
ene ma wo se me susu nka ebro 10,000 Ghana cedis ebro 10,000 Ghana cedis because screens ma yedi ye adwuma nkrofo ntare wo me ho paint sama to ne nyuma ni na ahye enti se me susu nka eska ma hwere ebro 10,000 Ghana.
Apart from security wise, I work as say your market ni we are buying my security no more any tight traffic here quine so someone should say a quine bedi demono a dear baby now this ready be not better buying any
this year 21st century so we share send a market at here the person say market send a carbad who be gym so obey ya musi ni this year so we share send a we send air kwa BBC say hospital school any no ma to me ba market ni mu na to me si market ni yi na se na ya ka no omo ye hye yi na so bia be ye ne chefa ba bia atena adidwa aye adwuma na ne ho atona ye ni so ade hu ade ye hwehwe no no
skasem se bia ba mra mombo no compensation bi and the win hwesa
inti ya ka so obeye hye so betu edin na wayen hihye bi ato ho se betu sike bi na ba na support yen no bi etumi ne chefa wayen sa na yebeda na ase.
Thank you. So that's a sad situation here. Over 100 shops have been destroyed here, and that's Kantamanto. The fire service are still here. They are trying to completely quench the fire. Right now, the situation is under control. That we can see a lot of fire service men, officials here. But the sad thing is that even though some of the shops are still burning, people are in here. Scrap dealers are here, taking out the metals from the shop. They don't care about the situation. They don't care if there is fire there. They are just moving in, holding their metals, holding their stakes. Some are not even in gloves. They're just walking through the area there and trying to get any metal that they can just get their hand on to also go and sell. So they're also trying to make money out of the situation here. Millions of Ghana cedis have been destroyed here currently. The Ghana Fire Service have begun investigation into the situation and the issue so far. According to the fire service, the fire began around 1:19 a.m. this dawn, and they were able to mobilize all the fire tenders in Greater Accra, 13 fire tenders, including one from Tema East. They brought all of them here, and they are still here. And the PRO for the Ghana Fire Service has been pleading with government to provide them with more logistics and also. Sweetie, I will you kindly Sweetie. So take over from me now.
Thank you so much, Collins Frimpong, my colleague there, bringing us live updates and the stories from some affected traders there at Kantamanto. Rather sad. But let's speak to Dr. Joseph Obeng, that's GUTA president, to understand if some of his members have been affected and the way forward. Doc, thank you so much for joining us. You're on the AM show. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, my dear.
Great. So, I mean, the biggest story right now is that fire that's gutted some stores in Kantamanto. So I'm sure some of your members have been affected. What stories have come to your attention so far, and how are you dealing with the situation?
Yeah, so as you are saying, it happened during the midnight, and my team is on the ground compiling.
Doc, kindly speak up for me.
Hello?
Yeah.
So my team is on the ground compiling all the necessary information. Definitely, most of our members have been affected so far as they are traders and all that. And it's very worrying, especially coming in the wake of the new year, where we just started to come to work. It's very worrying. The reoccurrence of this problem have to be investigated. We have to do forensic audit into the market structures. It's very important. And then also, we have to provide the proper modern facilities for these areas. Otherwise, we keep on witnessing some of these things, which is not auguring well for the nation.
It's almost as if this happens every year. I mean, we can speculate, but what do you think is happening there? What's possible explanation do you have for which reason every year fire guts some stores in Kantamanto? So I'm curious to know, what do you think of it?
So what I would say is that we have the market administrators, and then we have the city authorities. They collect the tools all right. They collect the levies and taxes all right. But what is left is how to monitor and manage these markets for us. And that's what we have to demand accountability from that. Because there should be somebody whose authority mandate is to monitor this market, to see how things are managed in this market, so that there should be rules and engagement in this market, how things are done, how even electricity gadgets are installed, and all this. It's lack of this monitoring effort by the managers that's bringing this. And then also we have to do a serious auditing as to how these markets are structured, the access to these places and all that, how these electricities are connected. Whose mandate is it to supervise all of this? And then the ultimate is to build modern markets that is suitable for human habitation. That's what we have to think ultimately so that we can solve this.
Right. One of the stories in the interviews that my colleague Colin Springpong brought us, there was a gentleman saying he's lost up to 67,000 cedis or so. In a situation like that, how does a person like this move forward? Is there a plan to reimburse them in terms of insurance or anything? I mean, this happens over and over. For that particular situation, what does the person do?
And so that's why we've been talking to the city authorities. We wanted even to factor insurance into the premises fees that we pay. And so we needed some arrangement with the insurance, the city authorities, and all that. So it has been on the drawing board, but we are not getting a way forward. If we're able to do that, it means that every shop will be insured. You know, if you leave it to the individual, normally the wait and see attitude of the Ghanaian, they never go and insure. But the ultimate is to do the insurance. We have actually also talked to other insurance companies to fashion out a very affordable rate for the insurance to be paid by the informal sector. And we are doing all that. The ultimate is for you to ensure your product, knowing that this thing is perennial and it can happen to you and all that. We've been talking to them. I believe most of them are also insured. But we can say that we have to do even more to educate them on the need to insure their product. And then the proper usage of electrical appliances in the market, and then other. Of course, you know, this is a market that people can even cook, people do ironing and all that. And so if the monitoring and all that is not there, then we are bound to be facing this thing. So we need market managers to be up and doing and to monitor this. So
Dr. Bing,
yes.
You see, even before insuring, I think it appears a large number of these traders are unbanked. To save or to keep nearly or over 60,000 Ghana cedis in cash in a store, where you know that every year we have incidents of fire. What are you doing as a union to ensure that at least the majority of these traders are keeping their monies in the bank where it's safe from issues like this?
No, so they keep stocks. And then normally, if you do trading at the New Year Eve, where banks may close early and all that, definitely taking money home is also at risk. And so sometimes some kind of money will be kept at the bank, depending on the situation, depending on the time that goods were purchased. I hope you understand. And so if the time is not convenient for banking, then of course, then you have to do with keeping your money, especially when you know that nothing has happened there for the past couple of days or months. Then of course you will have the courage to save this money there. But it is not the best thing also to do, and that's all that we are calling for: modern infrastructure where proper amenities will be provided that people can conveniently be able to habitat the place. To be conducive for human habitation and trading habitation. And this is what we seek. We have to look at all these things. It's very important.
Dr. Yusuf Abin, thank you so much for speaking to us. That's Guta president, and some of his members have been affected by that fire in Kantamanto. The Ghana National Fire Service has yet to confirm the exact cause of the fire, although traders are suspecting arson, but the fire so far have been put out. We heard from Alex King-Nate, I think the PRO for the Ghana National Fire Service, and he reiterated that they've done their best to put out the fire, and they've salvaged more things than were lost. But looks like the traders have a different story, because some of them have lost monies up to the tune of 67,000 Ghana cedis, and that is the issue that we have now. Guta president was just saying that although it may come across as if that the number of those traders are unbanked, it is just the season, the time you get the money, whether banks are open or not, and how easily you can, transfer that money to the bank is what sometimes causes these issues. But let's also speak to President of the Greater Accra Markets Association, Mercy Afrowa-Nijan. Mercy, thank you for joining the conversation. I want to start from, how are you feeling this morning after this incident? And it's not the first time we are seeing an issue like this. How are you feeling? That's not a good sound to hear. We'll try and get Mercy again. Mercy Afrowa-Nijan is the president of the Markets Women Association. And we're trying to see, get more perspective from her in terms of how the people are feeling, way forward, and how many more, how many money have been lost to this fire now. Now, some people also said that they took loans, which have just been destroyed in the fire. What do they do? How do they move on from here? Are they insured or not? These are all questions we want to find out from Mercy. And she's back. Mercy is the president of the Greater Accra Markets Association, not Markets Women, beg your pardon. Mercy, thank you for joining the conversation. Na etisaya na pawe.
Yamina domo
Yamia doma fishapa.
Afishapa so.
Okay, so now that we are hearing this devastating story, how do you feel? What is the mood from some of the markets, the traders that you've interacted with so far?
Oh, my sister, it's very unfortunate. Just on the first of the year and on the second. Oh, I'm very sorry for the members there. It's rather unfortunate. Because during Xmas times, most of the people use all their money to buy goods to trade during the Xmas and the New Year. So if you don't take care, you get a lot of the market people having their money, having their goods bent. Unfortunately, I haven't been to the scene, but I will send my sympathy to my members there and wish them a happy New Year and very sorry for what has happened. By all means, I will go there this morning and check and see how far the destruction is. So I'm very sorry for them. It's rather unfortunate.
Mercy, this is not the first time this is happening. In fact, it appears every single year. Fire got some stores in Kantamanto. For as long as you have been president of the Markets Association for the Greater Accra region, what have you been doing to curtail, the widespread fire that we always see every year? How have you done about it so far?
A lot has been done. Fire service people go there to do education. They talk about how they have wired their place, and they always advise them. So many people shouldn't use 1 meter or 1 socket. So advice has been going on for a very long time. But the problem is the place is old. And so most of the meters and so on, they are old. So I feel there should be a proper renovation there so that they change the meters and rearrange the market, because it is stuck. Even if there is fire service, it will be very difficult for you to get to where the fire is. So I think renovation will be okay, so that they change their wires and so on. That's what I thought.
Is this a conversation you've had with authorities yet? Is this a conversation that you've had with the proper authorities?
We have talked on it. We have spoken on it for a very long time, that most of the markets needs renovation. Most of the market needs facelifting.
And what responses have you been getting?
For a very long time.
Mercy, what responses have you been getting? You said this is a conversation you've been having. What are the responses that you get when you raise this issue?
Yes, we do talk to them. They agree on our suggestions, but it's now the time for implementation. And I hope that as we are getting a new government, maybe he will be able to take it up quickly so that we get that response that we want.
Okay, thank you so much. And finally, before you go, one of the traders who was affected by the fire mentioned that the police or security, no one should come and say they should move from Kantamanto. Is it your opinion that most of the traders still want to stay there, although you yourself have said that the structures there are old and it needs some renovation?
You see, presently the place is choked. It's like no man's land. So everybody is going there to trade and go there, trade and go, without any proper demarcation, without any proper arrangement. So we are sorry that this misfortune this thing got to them at this special time of the year. But maybe they will use that opportunity to rearrange them, modify the place, and renovate the place for a safe and proper trading.
Mercy Afro-Anijan is President, Greater Accra Market Association. Thank you for speaking with us this morning, Mercy. Thank you. So that's it about the fire. Collins Frimpong brought us some live updates, and we spoke to the president of GUTA, and he also said that it's about ensuring that, you know, the traders and all that things that can be done to ensure that even when fire guts these stores, they can come out with some normalcy. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll bring you some more conversations before we wrap up the show this morning. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Let's cross over to Collins Frimpong in Kantamanto, because he's still there interacting with some traders whose stores were gutted by that fire. Collins, what more can you report?
Shops, and people are counting their losses. Traders, over 1 million Ghana cedis, over millions of cedis, not a million, I beg your pardon, millions of cedis have been burnt over here. A lot of items that we can't count. Shops have been destroyed. We still want to speak to
I think we have some network interruptions there. Collins Frimpong was just telling us how millions of Ghana cedis have been destroyed in the fire. We spoke to the GUTA president, and I thought that is because most of them are unbanked. As in, they save their monies in the stores or in the homes rather than in the banks where it's safe. I mean, in this day and age, you'd think that that's the way everybody saves their money, but apparently not. And maybe also because of the season. We heard from the president, and he was explaining that sometimes by the time you close your shop at in the night, banks aren't working, and because it's a holiday, you can also go to the bank the next day to put your money where it's safe. So unfortunately, they're losing money. Abudu joins me now from Tamale. Abudu, thank you for calling.
Yes.
What's up?
Yeah. Talking of this fire outbreak in Kantamanto.
Yeah.
Yes. The problem is, if you see Waka, there was Ouagadougou, the capital, Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou. There was an outbreak of fire. It was well and the 6 o'clock, everybody is out of that place. Now we smokers are inside the market. People are cooking and sleeping there. So just that you offer all the things. So don't put the blame onto somebody. Those who sleep there, we smokers, drinking bars and everything inside the market there. But this will happen. So we hope that you have to build and then put securities inside there, like what one of the traders was saying. You put security, 6 o'clock, nobody is found in the market there.
Thank you so much,
6 o'clock
Abudu.
in the morning, then the market will open for traders to attend to their duties. That's the soul of it. Why not every year, all this is going to happen? So we should not attribute it to like, if this party, an opposition party comes, then it happens. No. It's an individual, the individual consciousness.
Thank you so much, Abudu. And although Ghana National Fire Service is yet to confirm the exact cause of the fire, we know that some of the traders are suspecting arson. And there's this school of thought, I mean, I shouldn't be peddling rumors, but they're saying that sometimes people intentionally do this to claim insurance. And, well, police are investigating, so the truth of the matter will be brought to light eventually. And that's what we have. We are still talking about the fire in Kantamanto that came to light at the early hours of this morning, 2nd of January. We know that hundreds of stores have been affected so far. Our colleague Collins Frimpong is on ground, but we also want to talk to you. This is Have Your Say segment. And Osman is joining me now, also from Tamale. Osman. Thank you for calling. Good morning. What's on your mind?
What is my mind? What your panel talk about concerning education? The government is unable to identify people serving at the deprived areas. It's something that is worrying. If you go to those areas, you see how people are suffering, especially the teachers. You go to a community and there's no accommodation for a teacher to stay and serve the people there. The teacher will be struggling there. So it's important that they are acknowledging that problem to be addressed. It's really worrying. That in the government, especially the government, should take it seriously. And now, regarding our markets, the market, there's everything who are maybe
the president
the
of Greater Accra Market, yeah.
Come again?
You're referring to the president of the Greater Accra Markets?
Yes, they should do something about people staying inside the market after the daily sales, or maybe people living in the market. When the market closes, at least everybody should go home. If people are still staying in the market, maybe we smokers, or maybe we something different that does not concern sales, buying and selling, those people should be drive away from the market so that we can maybe save some of the markets. It's not only at Greater Accra this thing is happening, all over the country. If you go in the night, you see people in the market and you'll be worried. What are they doing there? They are not selling and they are not buying. So what are they doing there? So authorities should look up to that thing and maybe try to drive those people out and see what will happen next. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Osman, for calling. And I don't know what people are doing in the markets after, but until we know for sure that they're the ones starting these fires, you should also take caution. We've just entered the Harmattan season, which means that the places are, drier than usual. So be careful out there in terms of how you put out fire, in terms of how materials you use to start fire and where you start these fires. Ghana National Fire Service is always telling us to avoid fire at all costs if you can, except, in your homes when you want to cook. And even that, you have to be really careful. Well, folks, all too soon we have to wrap up for this Thursday edition of the AM show. I'm Sweetie Abochi, and tomorrow is our last day together. I hope you're enjoying your time with me, and you have a great start to the new year, I hope. And if not, there's still tomorrow, and tomorrow makes everything better. Thank you for joining, and stay for Joy News Desk, anchored by Kenneth Jesse, coming up shortly after now. I'm Sweetie Abochi. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a lovely rest of day.